Hey everyone, welcome to TPUSA Live. Happy Monday and happy President's Day to you and to you, Magna Hulk Stephen Davis.
Happy President's Day to you as well. Yes, indeed. Gotta love it.
Oh yeah, it's a great day. It's not just a day off, it's a day to celebrate some amazing presidents. Obviously, we got some things to say about the current one.
Just a
we'll
few.
try to stay a little cordial as much as we can in the next few minutes. But you know how we kick it off, Human Events Daily with Jack Posobiec. He's going to have the hard-hitting news for you. He's done a great job breaking down everything that's going on with the Freedom Convoy up north. Also, there is scandal after scandal when it comes to big tech, big corporations. He's been breaking that down and so much more.
How do you not have, with these big tech companies, it's a scandal after scandal. How is this a thing? Why can't they just stop? Can't they just stop with the scandals?
We're a morally corrupt generation, Stephen, and we're a morally corrupt people.
I'm asking for too much. I'm sorry.
That's what it is. I think that's probably the easiest breakdown.
Absolutely.
Like, who would have thought when you take God out of schools and God out of everything else, you go downhill. Shout out to SantaCon. What a life. But hey, that's why we need to talk about some Jesus today.
Oh,
luckily,
please,
we got one of our favorite episodes with TPUSA Live on the couch. We got Bob McEwen, former congressman there from Ohio, Charlie Kirk, obviously founder and CEO, the top dog here at Turning Point USA, and then both great pastors, Rob McCoy and Jack Hibbs. Is an awesome episode talking about, the state of the church right now. And obviously, during the pandemic, places of worship were shut down. Yeah. But I know Rob and Jack, they took some courageous stances and said, hey, we are going to live in faith, not fear. And we need to hear about, kind of like the founding of our country too. Like what we were building a country, but we weren't building a church. And how did that coincide? Yeah. It's a great conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm really glad that these two individuals kept the churches open, somewhere for the saints to go and worship. And it's just a show of faith and a show of strength. Really what it is.
And then oftentimes in our lives, we start making idols out of things. So it's a great conversation about that. Even in politics now, no matter if you're on the right or the left, you start making idols out of people or situations. It's a great, honest conversation about that because we need some more Jesus.
Please and thank you.
Jesus, not Jesus. All right.
Definitely Jesus.
Alex Clark will break down the Jesus conversation. We'll break down the Jesus conversation.
Yes.
And then right after that, you're going to get a brand new episode of Freedom Papers with the history buff, Morgan Zegers. And then she's back with Clegg, just two history buffs.
Yeah, you can't get much better than them. I'm telling you, they know everything that there is to know, and they will break it down to you very clearly and concisely, so stay tuned for that.
It's like I love U.S. history, but when I listen to those two, I'm just like, wow, that is a great way to break it down.
Oh, right?
Like you just want to sit back, relax, and it's like break down the Federalist Papers for us. So Federalist Paper number 17 is what they're going over there, and then you're going to get a brand new episode of Politics.
There we go.
Speaking of Jesus, so now we're doing that. There's not a lot of Kanye talk in this one at all, but there's I guess there's a no-no from Nicole Kidman.
What'd she do this time?
Oh man, you're going to have to watch to find out. I can't get that stuff away. Alex,
sorry.
Imagine how upset Alex would be.
She would be very upset. I'm sorry, Alex.
She said everybody watched the Open and they knew what Politics was about to the T. Now, we're just going to give you teasers for this stuff. Also, there's a sex scandal at SNL. And obviously, SNL's been going downhill for a good while.
Oh, yes. Get woke, go broke.
I was actually, the other day, I was watching some old SNL clips, like Will Ferrell when he's impersonating Harry Carey. Yeah. One of my favorites is Jim Carrey when he's the jacuzzi lifeguard. Will Ferrell's in that one too. There are some classic. Steve Martin is great.
Yes.
I just miss the old SNL.
Well, yeah, they did it better back in the day, and now all of a sudden it's gone downhill. So.
Oh man, it's crazy. And then she's got a pop quiz. Obviously Mondays she tries to do that. It's great. Get a little bit more up to speed with what's going on in pop culture. But once again, today is President's Day. Happy President's Day. So glad that you guys are tuning in. Do you have a favorite president? I could probably guess.
Take a wild guess.
I'm gonna go with the Don.
Yes, indeed. Starts with the T, ends with the ump. Yes, indeed. Let's go.
Do you have another one that's like not like a modern day president?
Washington.
Washington.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
come
that's a
on.
good one.
OG.
The OG Washington.
Yes, indeed.
Chop down that cherry tree, baby. But hey, we're so glad that you guys are here. It's going to be an awesome live stream for you. You know what we got next? Human Events Daily with Jack Posobiec, and then stick around. Awesome conversation about faith with some pastors and Charlie Kirk. See you soon.
What if I told you that this has all happened before? The riots, violence, church burning, attacks on police, destruction of private property.
My name is Sammy Steigman. I am a Holocaust survivor.
This is the reality of what happens when you have capitalism that goes to socialism.
El socialismo no funciona.
El socialismo no funciona.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard today's edition of Human Events Daily. Today's top stories, we're not going to sugarcoat it, folks. There's a lot going down in the world today. And the essential headline for all of this, I think especially for this first segment, remember Ottawa. Remember Ottawa. Well, the Canadian crackdown has begun as Trudeau has ordered a hauling away of the Freedom Convoy organizers. We'll break that all down next. Vice President Harris is heading to Europe amid the Ukrainian border crisis. Third, a Facebook manager of community development named Jaron Miles has allegedly been caught in a child sex ring. And finally, a woman is accusing SNL star Horatio Sands of underage grooming and sexual assault during the time he was on the show and has named Jimmy Fallon. All this and more ahead, Human Events Daily.
Even with Sun TV watching for any slip, he was asked which country he most admired and referred to China.
There's a level of admiration I actually have for China because their basic dictatorship is allowing them to actually turn their economy around on a dime and say we need to go green as fast as we need to start investing in solar. I mean, there is a flexibility that I know Stephen Harper must dream about of having a dictatorship that he could do everything he wanted that I find quite interesting.
Just back up, please. Just back up, guys. Thank you.
Take me too.
And me as well.
Yeah.
My name is Sean. Bye.
Hold the line.
Officer, you gotta take me too.
So we are currently recording this episode on Friday. It's about Friday afternoon here in Washington, D.C., year of our Lord 2022, February. But events are ongoing in Ottawa, and we need to remember them. We need to remember every single thing, every tweet, every image. Sear it into your mind. This is the real world. This isn't going away. This isn't some TV show. This isn't Netflix. This isn't Amazon Prime. You can't skip ahead. You can't get to the next episode. No. The only way out is through. When the Freedom Convoy started, you saw those videos. One of the most inspirational things I think we've seen throughout all of COVID, right? These trucks, big, powerful semis. The ones that we depend on. The ones that we depend on for our food, for our supplies, clothing. It's all thanks to the truckers. And you see them on the highway and you say those guys are there getting to the market what we need to be able to live on a regular basis. That's all trucks. Hospitals, by the way, all those medical supplies, medical equipment, who do you think's bringing all that? Right, it's all trucks. Every single bit of it. And so when we saw them flying in Canada, of all places, that they would have these beautiful Canadian flags and people cheering on the highways and byways as they came from all across the provinces to Ottawa, to the capital of Canada, and said, we want our freedom back. We want you to lift these mandates. We want you to lift these restrictions. We just want freedom. We just want to go back to our lives. That's it. We just want to be left alone to go back to our lives. And people supported this. Well, now the regime has responded. And I've said before, I keep saying this, we are living through an era of regime politics. And in war, the first casualty is the truth. Understand what's going on. You've got to put steel to spines at this point. Because if you thought this was just about the mandates, if you thought this was just about COVID, you haven't been paying attention. This is about power. This is about who gets to end the pandemic. This is about the way power flows. And Trudeau, he's a member of the party of Davos. So understand, he's not taking his marching orders from the people of Canada. He's not operating off the same playbook that any normal person who says, look, we need to de-escalate, we need to find some accommodation. Premiers across Canada, by the way, of individual provinces have already begun the process of dropping the mandates. So Trudeau easily could have said, it would take him 2 seconds. He loves being on Twitter. He could tweet, hey, we're working on a plan to drop the mandates. We're going to come to turn the corner on COVID. This is all going to go down. We appreciate your voice. We appreciate where you're coming from. We've all felt frustration with these lockdowns, but we do see the light at the end of the road. All you would have to say. All you have to say. That's what a leader would say. But a despot, a tyrant, Castro Jr., they would say something else. Ottawa police have announced, just moments before we started recording the show, reporters are being arrested or will be arrested if they're in the area of the Canadian capital, Parliament Hill. If children are there, they'll be taken away, but they'll be taken to safety, right? They'll take the children away. And that everyone there will be arrested the same way that the leaders of this were arrested, just like the CCP went after the leaders of the student protests in Hong Kong. Understand what part of the movie you're in.
Russia is clearly escalating. And as the president has said, American citizens need to leave Ukraine and take this seriously. Also, we as the United States have been very clear with Russia from day one practically on this issue that if Russia takes aggressive action and denies the territorial integrity and the sovereignty of Ukraine, we are prepared to take serious and swift and unified action.
Well, this is how you know that President Biden has lost Europe. He's sending Vice President Harris over there. We're told, by the way, that she's going to be meeting with President Zelensky of Ukraine in Munich at this Munich Security Conference tomorrow, this Saturday. So, Kamala Harris, the Vice President of the United States, is being given this. And remember, they are giving all of their failed policies to her. Remember, this was Kamala Harris, the same one that she was so upset when she didn't get to go to the G7, right? She's saying, well, you know, I've never been to Europe either. I guess she has, her little snarky comment when she was down to Guatemala. So the question now becomes, what is the White House going to do? Why is it that they're sending the JV squad to Europe right now, as opposed to anyone else? They are setting her up for failure. They are playing her. This is how you know that the Biden administration, they've lost. They've completely lost the plot with this Ukrainian border dispute. And I said before, and I say this again, in war, the first casualty is the truth. So yeah, there's shelling going on in eastern Ukraine. There's a vehicle that just exploded. Who did it? You don't know. And the media is trying to tell you they know. They're trying to tell you that there's a false flag that's imminent. How do you know a false flag is imminent? And if a false flag were imminent, wouldn't it be wouldn't it be more effective to say that a false flag was going to come, to leak that to the other side so that when something does happen, they read it the other way? Or when it doesn't happen, you make them look. You see where we're going with this? You are seeing information ops on top of information ops. You're now starting to see evacuations take place in Donetsk, in that disputed border region. And it does look like some conflict is about to take place. We're not going to see the aerial bombardment of any of the major cities of Kiev. We're not going to see these massive, sweeping, tank invasions of Kiev the way that the media has been telling you. But understand what's going on here. This is brinkmanship. And the Biden administration doesn't know what they're doing. They're ratcheting up and escalating tensions. Why? because they have no other option. Their failed policy agenda here at home, their failed polls in state after state after state where they're underwater on domestic issues. We're hearing now that in his upcoming State of the Union address, he's going to take credit, President Biden's going to try to take credit for defeating COVID, when we really know that it was Omicron that came through and swept around, giving natural immunity to millions and millions of people that really wound this entire thing down. That's what happened. That's the facts. That's the truth. That's, dare I say it, the science that took place. But President Biden desperately needs some kind of win. So he is poking the bear as hard as possible in Ukraine to try and start a proxy war with Russia in the middle of Eurasia in the dead of winter. Does that make sense? No. And the same way that I said that if it made sense for Trudeau, a statesman, a true statesman would say, let's come to some kind of accommodation. Obviously, there is a dispute here. Let's talk about the issue. Let's figure a way out. But that's not what he wants. And this isn't what President Biden wants here. That's why they're sending Kamala Harris over to go and deal with this thing. Yeah, she's really going to scare the Russians, right? So you've got this region, of course, that's caught in the middle. Children, families, women, elderly, that are caught in the middle. They're now being evacuated out to Russia. What's going to happen next? It's anyone's guess, because you're seeing people move in there, the same people in many cases that were involved in Syria. And the first thing that was lost, the first casualty of Syria, even before ISIS, was the truth. The way we armed the moderate rebels and worked with them. And we would never, ever arm or fund terrorist groups. No, just moderate extremists. Moderate extremists. And to this day, people in the United States have no clue what's going on in Syria and didn't have any clue until people went in and cleaned it up. We saw that with the previous administration, got rid of ISIS. What is about to break out next in Ukraine is anyone's guess. But we do know one thing. There's one thing we do know. It's not peace. And that's what President Biden, what Kamala Harris, what all of these people should be trying to achieve for the world. But in the same way, natural immunity doesn't pay the bills. Peace doesn't pay the bills. The contractors, big pharma, etc., they don't get paid if there's peace. They don't get paid if people are healthy. So what do you need? You need conflict. You need tension. That's what ratchets up ratings, by the way, for the media, going all the way back to the Spanish War. Understand what part of the movie you're in. And ladies and gentlemen, you're in a movie. Well, MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell was not able to make it across the border into Canada. He was trying to get up there to support the truckers. He's now talking about potentially even doing, I know, crazy enough, an airdrop of pillows into Ottawa to support the truckers. We're not sure what's going on, but I do know one thing. Mike Lindell is on the right side of history about this. So if you want to be on the right side of history as well, you go to mypillow.com/poso. You go, you support what he's doing, support the truckers, get a great pillow, a great product for yourself. And by the way, one of your loved ones, if you want to donate something, we're donating some pillows again to the church right now. Just talked to my wife, Tanya, about that. And there's also great products. You got the robes, you got the sheets, you got the slippers. Winter is here. Winter is here, and you need to upgrade your sleep system for your warmth and for your comfort now. This next story, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not even really sure how to prepare you for this one because it's horrific. And I wish today were a better news day, but it's just not. It's just not. But I'll read the headline, and then we're going to play this harrowing and very disturbing video. And I'm not even being sarcastic. This isn't actually a disturbing video. From postmillennial.com. A Facebook executive has been fired after he was allegedly caught in a child sex sting in Columbus, Ohio. And we have this on video.
So you're telling this 13-year-old boy that he makes you horny, correct?
Could be perceived as such, yes.
Oh, quit the bullshit, bro. I'm sick of your bullshit.
Good. I won't have any restraint around you if I'm horny. What does that mean?
It means I was flirting. I was talking to him. Throughout all of this, I'll let you know there was never any intention of ever meeting up with him.
Okay.
Bro.
But you did set 2 meets with him.
That I never intended to go to or
But you set it
show up
up.
to.
Correct.
And I gave information and location and all that stuff. Yes, it
I mean,
can be
how did I
perceived as
find you? It's not like I just pulled this out of my...
It's true.
You gave the hotel and the hotel room.
Right.
So you set the meets. So you're okay with talking sexual online as long as you don't meet the children?
This is the one time I've done this.
The only time. Okay, so you are okay to talk sexual to 13-year-old Corey because you knew in your head that you would not meet up with him.
That was my rationale.
Miles, we're told, Jaron Andrew Miles of Palm Springs, California, allegedly sent explicit text messages to a 13-year-old boy and made plans for the boy to meet him at Le Meridien Columbus Hotel. Miles was the manager of community development at Meta/Facebook until a spokesperson for the company confirmed that Miles is, quote, no longer with the company. According to the video, an anti-pedophile activist group busted him at the hotel, where he there then agreed to give an interview to try to talk his way out of this. You hear him, I was flirting, there was no intention, there was no talk. This guy, Jaron Miles, serves on the board of directors for the LGBTQ+, don't forget the plus, group, Equality California. He has since deleted all of his social media accounts from LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Previously worked as the director of community affairs for Lyft, and we do have an archive of this site. He was, just all over the place. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the people that are staffing Silicon Valley. These are the people who are behind the screens that are supposed to be protecting. Keep in mind, if he's at Meta, that means he's Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp. And this is your overall executive for these departments. Why is it that we trust our children with these platforms, that we allow people to go on there, and yet you've got guys like this at the very top who, if this is true, should be arrested immediately, and every single piece of his work should be investigated? And not just, one of these internal Mark Zuckerberg investigations. Mark Zuckerberg is trying to institute the metaverse. Apparently Meta means I met a teen in a hotel room, because that's what they're doing at Meta. Are you really gonna let your kids sign up for that when it's controlled by people like this? And I understand what's gonna happen. People are gonna say, oh, it's just one guy, it's no big deal. Understand what they're trying to connect you to.
We got in a lot of trouble too on the show. Do you remember the writers' table, the writers' party? It was the last writers' party. I don't think they're allowed to have them anymore.
I don't think you could party on 17 anymore because of what happened.
Dude, it was
what you did.
Me?
Yeah.
You broke a rib.
I broke a rib, but do you know why?
I think so.
Okay, let's explain what we were doing up there. We were letting off a little work steam.
Yeah.
Because it was the last week of the show, and we have a writers' party on Wednesday, right? Or I don't know if they still do, but they used to. And so it was just us and a few friends, and then we just get really, really drunk. Even Tina got drunk, who doesn't really drink.
No, yeah.
I guarantee you will not see this story trending on Twitter. You won't see it trending anywhere across social media. Why? Because when powerful names of those individuals like Alec Baldwin, or in this case Jimmy Fallon, are involved, that are protected by the Blue Cathedral, then those social media platforms, which are also tied to the same power structure of the regime, they will not be targeted the same way that you or I or anybody else would be, or Charlie, Andy No, etc., James O'Keefe. Here's the headline from Daily Mail. He abused me all over SNL. Woman who accused comedian Horatio Sands of grooming her when she was 15 before sexually assaulting her, age 17, at an SNL after-party, claims that Jimmy Fallon was aware of their inappropriate relationship. Horatio Sands' accuser, known as Jane Doe, speaks out for the first time about alleged sexual abuse since filing a lawsuit last year. Doe, who lives in Pennsylvania, filed the complaint against Sands and NBC, claiming the SNL alum sexually assaulted her when she was 17 in 2002. She said he would bring her to these parties, the same ones that you just heard Horatio Sands and Jimmy Fallon talking about, and that they knew she was underage, and specifically that Jimmy Fallon knew that she was underage. But this is back in the early days of the internet, early 2000s. There would be these chat groups and these message boards, and people would go on, and if you were a super fan of Saturday Night Live, this was Saturday Night Live towards the, I wouldn't say its heyday, but towards the end of its heyday, right? It was still quite a cultural force, not the way it is now. Where Saturday Night Live is seen as a punchline now because it's not a cultural force anymore, it's a political force. It was seen as, some honor or some respect that you would be chosen to be able to actually participate in a cast party. So of course, this is what they do. They target the same thing that we see Hollywood do for years. They target young, impressionable people, teenagers, girls, people who are ambitious, people who want to get ahead, people who are trying to find their way into the industry. We saw Epstein do this. We saw Weinstein do this. And according to this lawsuit, which of course is still alleged, we hear this is what Horatio Sands was doing. They actually had text messages from Horatio Sands or instant messages where he was basically confirming that the person that he was talking to, despite having chat logs from the early 2000s documenting her conversations with Sands, her friends' witness accounts, and even Sands' alleged confession, the actor still has not been held to account for his actions. Sands appeared on the NBC staple of Saturday Night Live from 1998 to 2011. In recent years, he's been seen in films including Clifford, Zeroville, The Sex Addict, Actors Anonymous, and TV shows such as The Mandalorian. Well, it certainly wouldn't be the first time that Disney employed a pedophile. Now, I'm not saying that he is, but I'm saying that's certainly what he has been accused of. Again, Hollywood protects their own. The Blue Cathedral protects their own. And that's why you have to fight back and expose these people. Huge week here at Human Events Daily. Now more than ever, we are bringing this to you. Look, it's getting tough to find only a couple of stories a day because I've made this promise to all of you every day, right? A promise, our oath, our solemn vow. Be good, be brief, be gone. But I gotta tell you guys, it is not easy to be able to compact everything that's going on in the world into just 25 minutes. And that's why it's so important that you get your daily briefing every day and then you share it out with one of your normie friends, right? Leave us your 5-star review, Apple, Spotify, etc. This is all signal. There's no noise here. But before we go, there's one thing we have time for. Today's history break. Today, February 18th, 1980. Justin Trudeau's father, Pierre Trudeau, won his last election, federal election in Canada, becoming prime minister. Like father, like son. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, you have my permission.
All right, guys, you have signed up, right? You've joined freedomsquare.com. If you haven't, why not? This should have happened a decade ago. How did somebody not think of this earlier? If you're a business owner, we have a business directory to promote your business to patriots across the nation. So if you want to buy American, if you want to sell American, we have a business directory. Whatever it is, go now.
Join us in the fight for freedom. Welcome to Freedom Square.
And we are out. So ends today's transmission of Human Events Daily from the regime-occupied National Capital Region. We turn it over to the free state of Arizona as Turning Point Live continues from the couch. Take it away, John.
Welcome to our first ever political correctness and inclusivity training. First off, safety. Just want to make sure that everyone here is jabbed, right? Just kidding, none of my business. So I'm Dylan, I'm your HR rep. A little bit about me. I'm a white man, and I'm so sorry if that makes any of you uncomfortable. On to the first order of business today. We're gonna be talking about diversity. And Josh, did you have anything you wanted to say?
Donde está la biblioteca? I'm from Colorado. I learned that from Dora.
Okay, second order of business. This is a mental health friendly workplace. Yes, Alex.
If we're really a mental health friendly workplace, what are we doing about the suicide rate of the birds? Because I saw 2 dead birds in the parking lot yesterday.
Alex, shut up.
Yeah, there's been a really big disregard for the bird lives ever since people in the office started sharing the birds are not real meme. Birds are definitely real. The government's putting chips in their brain, which is making them self-destruct and kill themselves, and we have to be talking about the real issues, or what are we doing here at all? Bird lives matter.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
That's what BLM stands for. That's not what it stands for.
She brings this up every time.
Why is Mitchell in a Pope costume?
Why are the snacks always feel like
they
don't
I think this went really well. All in all, this is a great place to work, and we're becoming more politically correct every single day.
Well, hey there, welcome to Turning Point headquarters in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm your host, Jon Root, and this is a special faith edition of TPUSA Live. This is one of those conversations we think will be essential as you navigate our crazy world. Let's check out the rundown. We'll start things off by introducing you to our guests, including TPUSA founder Charlie Kirk, joined by Pastor Jack Hibbs, Pastor Rob McCoy, and former Ohio Congressman Bob McEwen. Next, we'll discuss the state of the church in America right now and why our guests believe the church is essential to the people of our great nation. Then we'll sit down for an important chat about what we make idols of and what we can do to fight for America without making it an idol itself. You definitely don't want to miss our discussion about how the left aims to push progressive ideas to the church and why it's so dangerous. Our incredible guests will share what the church and people of faith should be doing right now to combat the divisive, non-biblical ideologies that are vying for our allegiance and attention, followed by one last thing. We believe this will be an extremely beneficial conversation to every single one of you. Let's do this. TPUSA Live from HQ starts now.
Authentic, unfiltered, grassroots content and conversation every weekday. Live from Phoenix, Arizona at the Turning Point USA headquarters, this is TPUSA Live.
Well, welcome back to TPUSA Live. We have an incredible lineup right here, right now. I'm going to introduce you to, first off, Charlie Kirk, the founder of Turning Point USA, also the host of the Charlie Kirk Show. We could go on and on.
That's it. That's it.
That's it. That's all. That's all
good.
you want.
That's it.
I got a little bit more. Is that okay? All right. Your show ranks in the top 10 of Apple Podcast charts consistently, and you are the 10 most engaged Twitter handles in the world. We're talking about faith today and why it's so important for everybody in America. How's your faith guided you through your career as a well-known political figure?
Yeah, it's everything. It's the most important thing that anyone can do in their life is to give your life to Jesus Christ. I focus on the second most important thing, which is to make sure you can do the first thing. The gospel's not spreading right now in Kabul, and to be indifferent to kind of the type of government you have around you, I think, is a violation of the many biblical principles. So it's the most important thing in my life, and it instructs everything else that I do and everything that we do here at Turning Point.
Mm-hmm. Next up, we got Pastor Jack Hibbs. You are the senior and founding pastor of Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills. That's located in Southern California. We'll get to the other Southern California guy in just a second, don't you worry. But you began a home fellowship 30 years ago.
Yep.
Now your church has got over just 10,000 people weekly on campus, and you're reaching out to millions of people across the world consistently. What has been your main focus as you lead your congregation in these hyper-politicized times?
John, this may sound kind of corny, but the focus has been exactly the same for 30 years. We teach through the Bible, verse by verse, chapter by chapter, book by book, and people want truth. Mm-hmm. And so what has happened in these very, very unstable times, people gravitate toward truth. And so that's exactly what's going on. They come every week, and they want truth.
Yeah. And then next up, too, we got Congressman Bob McEwen. I could go on and on. We got a lot of good stuff about you, Bob. You served 9 terms in both the Ohio and U.S. House of Representatives. You were appointed by President Trump to the Department of Defense Science Board, the Permanent Task Force on Threat Reduction of the Department of Defense, also a member of the U.S. 1776 Commission. But right now, you're the Executive Director of the Council for National Policy. But faith is where your foundation is, consistently the way you go about making sure legislation is taking care of religious freedoms and liberties. So how do you navigate this political landscape while still being grounded in your faith?
John, you can't function without truth,
If you try to add and you don't know that 2 and 2 equals 4, if you try to build a house and you have a 15-inch ruler and a 12-inch ruler, so there has to be a fundamental something that's a standard. And there's really only 2 standards, what you say and I say. And so if I say this room is 25 feet wide and you say it's 30, Jack, and somebody else says 32, we're all just happy, but that's just opinion. Some little 10-year-old comes in and measures it and says it's 22 feet, then everyone in the room knows that every time I said it was 25, I was wrong. Therefore, truth reveals error, and opinion doesn't matter. So when you're trying to build a country, you're trying to pass a law, you're trying to run a family, you're trying to plan your life, you can either do it on everybody's opinion, which doesn't, or you can do it on truth. Scripture says that the fear of the Lord, respect for God, is the beginning of wisdom. So if you do away with God, then you're going to be wandering around, and that's why our nation is different, and that's why we think it's the most important thing you can do with your life.
Amen to that. And finally, last but not least,
You make me follow him. This is not cool.
it's tough. It's Pastor Rob McCoy. You are the senior pastor of Godspeed Calvary Chapel of Thousand Oaks, also in Southern California. And you've been in that position for over 2 decades, but also too, you were elected to the Thousand Oaks City Council in 2015, and you served as mayor in 2019.
Right.
But an important part of your story was in May of 2020, prior to holding the Palm Sunday service, you opened up your doors in opposition to church closures in California. So when we're having discussions like this and you're thinking about pushing back on the government, why is that so important?
Well, the governor said that church isn't essential. He can say whatever he wants, but he can't violate the Constitution. And God says the church is essential. And so we just opened up, and that's one of the reasons why I'm no longer on the city council. I resigned because I swore to defend the Constitution. And I wanted to uphold that. And the council wasn't doing it, and the governor wasn't doing it. So we violated his order and opened up the church. And we've been doing it ever since. So it's critical to me. And faith means everything. Even going to jail for standing upon my faith, so be it.
And that's why I'm so glad we're having a discussion like this. And especially too, we're talking next about the state of the church in America right now and why that's so important, why this is something that every single American should really be worrying about and actually talking about. Because there's pastors like you that are saying, enough's enough. Like, I don't let the government dictate my congregation, how I pastor my church, and we're not letting the government dictate how we live our lives. Right. God dictates how we live our lives. So I feel like this conversation is going to be incredible, because coming up next, we were talking about the state of the church in America right now. There's so many things that are vying for your allegiance and your attention, but God should be at the center of the way you live your life and the way you go about everything in your entire life. I'm excited. Gentlemen, we'll be right back. We'll see you in a few.
Good ranchers, straight from the American farm. 100% American meat, 100% of the time. Delivered straight to your door.
Wait, are those my Good Rancher steaks? I'll be taking these.
Claim your 10 free bistro fillets with your next order with promo code TPUSA Live at goodranchers.com.
Well, hello and welcome back to TPUSA Live in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona at TPUSA HQ. We got Bob McEwen, Pastor Jack Hibbs, Charlie Kirk, and Pastor Rob McCoy. We're talking about the state of the church right now. And I think this is such an important conversation because, like we talked about consistently in this episode. There's so many things that are vying for your attention, for your allegiance, and in a lot of ways too, I feel like the church let people down over this last year, especially with this pandemic response. I think initially we were coming together. We're trying to figure out exactly what this was, where it came from. We want to make sure we're taking care of people's health, but a lot of people were looking to the church for answers. And I think, Rob, once again, I think we can start with you and then just have full discussion about that pandemic response. Initially, what did you think, and then how did you go about things as a church leader from there?
Yeah, so early on, we didn't know the severity of the virus. And then as we started to get more information, we were operating, and I think all the churches willingly yielded until we found out more about the virus itself. But then when the riots happened in LA, where 75% of the businesses that were burned and looted were Jewish owned and targeted, and the governor praised it and everyone was shoulder to shoulder, no masks. At that point, with all the data we'd had a number of doctors, et cetera, we just knew that this had nothing to do with the virus. So we opened wide on May 31st. It was you, Jack, that inspired that. We wanted to open earlier, but we liked the Pentecost Sunday. And that's what we did. And then they gave a restraining order on us in August, and we hadn't had a single COVID case. And they said 1,000 congregants or visitors, and they named me in the suit, and we violated that restraining order and accrued about $300,000 in fines every Sunday. They'd just come after us, and they finally dropped the suit. And they don't have the right to do that. There's no pandemic that's worthy of the suspension of our rights.
Mm-hmm. And the church is essential. It's one of the craziest things everybody heard was just like, it's essential. You can go and just pack a grocery store, but you can't worship your God.
John, listen, first of all, in all of known history, the church had never been closed for any pandemic. You're talking about the cholera epidemic when Charles Spurgeon was preaching in England. Mm-hmm. They didn't close the church. You're talking about Martin Luther ministering in the streets when the plague is ravaging Europe. And all of a sudden, the experts were completely diametrically opposed as to what's going on. We heard what President Trump had said. We didn't know who Fauci was at the beginning. We shut down for 15 days. We were told people were going to be dying in the streets. Mm-hmm. But when we began to see, and Rob, I agree with everything that you said, and add this to it. Historically, the church operates best and most in crisis.
Yep.
Life's a crisis. For our governor, we share the same governor for now anyway. When our governor said the church is non-essential, immediately Rob and I understood and agreed, wait a minute, the church is not voted on as being essential or non-essential. Mm-hmm. The church is transcendent. And so our doors went open.
And I think another thing that was just so divisive too is talking about like, well, if you really love your neighbors, you'll do this. It's just like there's a sense of morality that's coming from a worldly place. So Charlie, I know you talk about that quite a bit too. It's just like we need to be looking to people like these pastors here and religious leaders too, and who are pointing people to God and not pointing people to the government to decide what is virtuous and what's moral.
Yep.
I mean, all laws legislate morality, which no one ever wants to talk
right.
about. And the question is, whose morality, right? And so you have some pastors that have even agreed to this nonsense that walking around like a 6th century Arab, with a cloth on your face is somehow loving your neighbor, which is ridiculous. There's no epidemiological evidence to show that you can be certain that the mask will help you. There's evidence on both sides. If you think they work, congratulations. Wear it up. Mm-hmm. Enjoy dehumanizing yourself and not being unfamiliar to other people. But the church was very quick to resort to these sort of talking points out of fear. Mm-hmm. Either fear of losing congregants, and fear of getting backlash from their local government. And so, the churches that stood boldly as these two did, they've seen increase in tithes and membership. The exact opposite is what they were told was going to happen, right? And so these leaders that do this, they've always wanted to go after the church. If it was about stopping the virus spread, they would have closed the department stores, they would have closed the liquor stores. That's right. And the marijuana shops and the abortion factories.
That's right.
Yep. That's right.
But a big thing too was just people look to the church for community. They look to the church for guidance. And when the church isn't open and not there for them, where do you go? And I think, Bob, you can speak to this too, because you had so many social justice warriors who say, join us.
And John, the question is, does it really matter? If you shut down the church, does it matter? If you were to ask me, what is the most important thing you've ever learned in your entire life? Here it is. everything in life is either physical or spiritual. And wisdom is the capacity to tell which is which. Now, the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace. Here's the point. You cannot achieve a physical end using a spiritual tool. So this building is obviously physical. So all the love and all the prayer and all the joy and all the peace doesn't build, because it's a physical building. You cannot achieve a physical end with a spiritual tool. In the same manner, you cannot achieve a spiritual end with a physical tool. So a person who is lost and he wants to find love, which is spiritual, all he knows is physical. So I have enough physical relationships, I'll find love. No, you won't. Love, joy. I can be happy if I get a new airplane, if I just get a new kitchen, if we just get a swimming pool, then I'll be, no, you won't, because love is not, happiness is not physical, it's spiritual. So in the same way with peace. You cannot achieve peace physically. Now, that's what the world is looking for. That's where people need it at this time. Their homes are being destroyed, their marriages are in chaos, the schools are upside down, and the source of answer is spiritual, which is the church, and so it's only natural that Satan would come against it and shut it down. And as Jack said, never in the history of the United States of America. If Adolf Hitler walked down the streets of Pennsylvania Avenue and said, I want to close every church in America, there isn't a church that would have done it. But this year, we had people that succumb and said it's noble for us to put God aside. And let me just close with this. If you walk by your son's bedroom at 9 o'clock at night and he's studying, you say, hey, you really don't need to do this. You know, it's really not important. Maybe next year we'll get to it. You can never retract that. For the rest of his life, he'll know that studying doesn't matter. And a pastor that stands up and says, I'm not sure we're going to meet this year, maybe next year, I don't know. He has communicated that spiritual import is not sufficient for the answers to the questions. So that's why these churches are blowing out the seams and growing and prospering, and the others are withering away, because Christ is the source of wisdom that answers the spiritual question.
John, in a time of fear, people want answers and they want stability. And the church was and is and will always be the only thing that can bring that.
And at the same time, too, people are going to church too for that guidance, and it seems like, you know, maybe you guys can speak on this a lot better than I can. I'm not a pastor, but I know being in a congregation, it seems like religious leaders are expected to speak on politics quite a bit, probably more than, like, you know, civil rights movement in the 60s. Obviously, that was a lot before my time, but as we finish up here, as you navigate that space, what does that look like, the state of the church now, when you're looking to our churches, looking to our leaders?
So most of the pastors saying love your neighbor, and you can broadcast your service on live stream. Well, watching church on television is like watching a fireplace. You can see it and you can hear it, but you can't feel the warmth. And if they're accusing us of not loving our neighbor, we do love our neighbor, and it comes at a great cost. We love the abused who've been quarantined with their abusers. We love the elderly who've had to die alone. We love the children whose schools have been shuttered. I mean, we love the 65% of the business owners in our county that will never reopen because of this. We're loving them at a cost, and we're contending for their freedom. Christ has come to set the captives free. And to say, you know, we're too political, we have to be, because politics is the highest form of community. It combines morality with sociability. We're contending for their freedom in the public square. And that's why we do what we do. And the church needs to do more of that.
And quickly, Charlie, with about 30 seconds left here, talking about how, I mean, you speak on faith and politics together consistently. Yes. Someone that's not a pastor of a church, but someone that's actually like looking to give people guidance. How do you go about that?
Yeah, it's the second most important thing you can do, is to make sure you can do the first thing, which is to make sure you have a government or a society that allows you to worship Christ and also pursue righteousness and virtue. This is a rare thing we have in America. It's so easy to take it for granted. It is one of the tricks of Satan to try to have you live a life of ingratitude and also not want to fight or contest against evil. The easy thing to do is to shut down your church, tell everyone to wear masks, tell everyone to get vaccinated, run to the hills. That's the easy thing to do. You'll get heralded for that. The hard thing to do is open up, face this thing with wisdom and courage. And the churches that have done that have been very blessed.
And coming up next, we're going to talk about what we make idols of. Constantly we talk about identity politics, but what do we make idols of and how do we fight back? See you in a few.
What if I told you that this has all happened before? The riots, violence, church burning, attacks on police, destruction of private property.
My name is Sammy Steigman. I am a Holocaust survivor.
This is the reality of what happens when you have capitalism that goes to socialism.
El socialismo no funciona. El socialismo no funciona.
TPUSA Live is about to be spicy. I mean, would you expect anything less? It's me, Alex Clark. Of course it's going to be spicy. Tune into The Spillover, my brand new podcast. Think of it like the older sister to politics with a lot more conservative.
What's up, guys? My name is Jon Root, and every week I'm breaking down the top stories in sports and bringing you conversations you won't hear anywhere else. It's going to be a great time here on Breakaway. Welcome back to TPUSA Live. This is a special faith edition of TPUSA Live from Turning Point headquarters in Phoenix, Arizona. We got Bob McEwen, Pastor Jack Hibbs, Charlie Kirk, and Pastor Rob McCoy. We're going to talk all about idols. Have no other gods before me. We all know this, read this in the Word, but right now there's so many things that are just trying to get the worship that we should be giving God consistently. So, when you're pastoring your church, Rob, when people are thinking about power and influence right now, everyone's worried about what is my brand? How am I going to get more followers? How am I going to make more money? They're making idols of these things consistently, and you have people in power and influencers telling them that's a good thing.
Yeah, so if you market the church, then you're going to be subject to marketing principles. But Jesus said they committed themselves to the apostles' teaching, and the Lord added to their numbers daily. Those are being saved. My job is just to rightly divide the word of truth and to make disciples of all nations. That's my responsibility. And the rest of it, as far as followers and social media and all that, that's God's deal. Mm-hmm. I'm called to be faithful. And that's what we've been committed to. And what's interesting is I always used to say I have a gift of preaching a church down to a manageable size, but now this is in vogue. People want truth and they're coming back, and we've grown 400% in 6 months. So go figure.
And obviously you got people like Alex Clark talking about politics, like talking about, you got like celebrities and the pop culture and things like that. But Charlie, it's something you speak on. Well,
she does a great job, and and this is what the church needs to understand, is that, and Martin Luther understood this, is that you need Christians in every sort of line of work. I mean, Martin Luther said that to the shoe repairman, you know that they'll be a Christian not because they put crosses in the shoes, but not just the quality of the work, but how they treat other people. The church a lot of times doesn't understand this. They say, Charlie, how could you as a Christian do this? Well, this is my line of work. This is what I'm passionate about, okay? Yeah. This is also what we're good at. Yep. And we try to glorify God by doing that. I will say one idol I think that America has to really shake itself. It's the idol of comfort. Mm-hmm. We are so comfortable, and we grow accustomed to this unrealistic lifestyle while evil is seeping in at every single direction. It really comes down to, are you willing to be uncomfortable to try and defeat evil and protect the good? It says in Romans to love what is good and hate what is evil. Mm-hmm. But you will not hate what is evil and be comfortable. It's impossible. Yeah. And if you put on the full armor of God, if you notice, you put on the breastplate of righteousness, the helmet of salvation, you would know that Jack would be able to fill in the rest of it better than I would. It's really uncomfortable to sit down when you're wearing all that armor. Yeah. You're supposed to be standing up. You're supposed to be fighting.
That's very good. On top of the fact that armor that you're speaking about in the book of Ephesians, there's no armor guarding the back, is there?
That's right.
It's all advancing. There's no retreating. And so we just have a very simple philosophy that's worked for 30 years, and it's this. Jesus said, my sheep know my voice, and they'll follow me. And the voice of Jesus is his word. And so the Bible has supernatural power because it's God's inspired word. And so when we present that, we can be now clear of the idol issues. Well, what's an idol? How many clicks? How many views? What's the Facebook friends? How many? Listen, forget that. Because when you just deliver the word of God, you'll see the results by people coming to eat of his word. And pastors need to do that in their churches now across this land.
Mm-hmm. And then right now too, Bob, it seems like we look to people in political power to obviously push legislation and get things back to an American loving place, back to our foundation, back to things that make this place great. But do you think there is a little bit, when we talk about faith, that people are making idols of America as a whole?
John, that's a very good question, and Jack answered it in that, what is an idol? Something that is more important to us. The very first thing in the Ten Commandments, have no other gods before me. In other words, well, I don't think that's right. I'm more important than God. I worship myself. I believe that I'm the most important, and what I say is the most important. He said that God said that's the crux of the problem. Number one, right there. Who's going to be on the throne of your life? And as long as He's on the throne of your life, then you have all the direction of all the things that work. If not, then you're going to have these other idols, and you go chasing after this person, and so I have that person's tattoo on my shoulder, but then I change my mind, and I want the other person's, and we're all chasing things that are literally idols, because why? They are more important than God. And He said, that's the mistake. No, don't make it.
And there's so many invisible idols, I feel like, right now too. Like you can read the Old Testament, and obviously you got idols that you can forge out of gold, and there's something just dead center in your face. But now there's so many idols that are just, digital too, and it's really scary.
John, I think an idol in this day and age, I actually believe there's more idols now than there ever has been in history. I think an idol is something, someone, it, whereby I derive my identity in that thing. If I am focused on Christ, if my identity is in Christ, He's my Lord and Savior, He's my God. If it's the money, or if it's the pursuit of what I want, where my identity is wrapped up in the house on the hill or that car, it's an idol. Where do you derive your identity matters.
And then wrapping up this segment too, we want to look to people in political power to make sure that we're getting back to a place that we desperately want to get back to. But how do you make sure that your listeners are not idolizing these people?
Yeah, they'll be let down. That's what I always tell them. Don't worry. Just give it a period of time. Look, you always put God first. You have to properly order your life, right? This is what the Greeks understood so well, Aristotle especially, that there's a hierarchy, that there's a place for things, and the eternal, the unmoved mover is at the top of those things. And even the properly ordered man, the properly sold man, the man who has contemplation, happiness, courage, justice, understands exactly how his life is supposed to go, he too will also be fallen, need Jesus Christ as well. This is why we can go through the words of the Declaration, but if all men created equal, that means we're of the same thing. We are all sinful by nature. Not that we have the same height or that we have the same talents. We are all of the same thing. And so you shouldn't put your hope in man. You should put your hope in God. With that being said, we should also say that we should try to strive to create good character in men, which we have definitely tried to get away from. And we create good character by giving important and clear instructions, and also trying to create habits that pursue righteousness.
And coming up next, we're going to talk about how the left is infiltrating the church with progressive theology. See you in a few.
You have to ask the question, how is the most heavily funded tribe have the poorest population?
Listen to me. My country's very because everything problem here. Don't have petroleum for bus and Cuban, for car, for life, for nothing.
And it sucks. Socialism sucks. There's no other way you can describe it.
Do you like guns? Do you like ammo? Do you like suppressors? Do you like freedom? Do you love America? Do you like baseball? Do you like rifles? Do you like 9mm? Do you like pistols? Join me, Paige Rue, every week on Reloaded.
Good ranchers, straight from the American farm. 100% American meat, 100% of the time. Delivered straight to your door.
Wait, are those my Good Rancher steaks? I'll be taking these.
Claim your 10 free bistro fillets with your next order with promo code TPUSA Live at goodranchers.com.
Welcome back to TPUSA HQ in Phoenix, Arizona. This is a special faith edition of TPUSA Live. We got Bob McEwen, Pastor Jack Hibbs, Charlie Kirk, Pastor Rob McCoy. Progressive Christianity is something that we're constantly seeing in the church right now in our day and age. The left seemed like the godless political party, and then now they're finding ways to infiltrate the church. And you see people like Georgia Senator Raphael Warnock pushing some of this stuff, and it seems to be a hybrid version of Christianity and Marxism. So when you hear things like this and constantly just weaseling its way into the church, how do you fight back against something like this?
Yeah, first of all, you fight back with truth, because truth can defend itself. You just got to let it go. But the issue is, for me, the fact that the Bible predicted that these days would exhibit this exact apostasy. It's actually apostasy taking place. They are leaving orthodoxy, and what they are making is a Christianity that doesn't actually exist. It's stealing from Christ, as it were, and draping a religiosity around a social agenda. They know that their system doesn't work, so they've got to somehow hang a cross on it or somehow put a robe on it. It's not going to work.
And you were talking about earlier, just like we as Christians, we're called to be uncomfortable. We're countercultural.
Yeah.
Yes. We all know that, and it's a very uncomfortable time. So we're seeing things like this progressive Christianity, where it's like, you know, like you have this like almost prosperity gospel that's being pushed too, where it's just like, you do this, you'll get this. Like and that's not biblical whatsoever. We need to be uncomfortable.
Yeah, and I think it's Luke 15. You can fact check me on that, where Jesus came. I came not to unite, but to divide, to turn father against son and mother against daughter. I mean, that's a very harsh teaching for some people in the progressive Christianity movement, where Jesus said, no, truth is going to be able to dividing line. You'll see who's on each side as soon as truth is spoken. Look, progressive Christianity is something that we deal a lot of, and there's different kind of variations of it. There's those that kind of passively support it, but they don't really know what they're doing. I offer them, you know, a chance to hopefully correct course. Then there are the ones, though, that go above and beyond, that are the ones flying the BLM flag, flying the LGBT flag. They're the ones that are saying mask and vax to their entire congregation, or else you're a bad person. I think it stems from bad theology. That's the first thing, and I think Jack, all of us would agree with that, is that it believes that the Bible is not inerrant, but can be edited in some way. Yeah, and Rob, we've dealt with this a lot.
Yeah, you know, the Romans, the Greeks, if they couldn't overcome something, they would just give it a deity status, Bacchus, god of alcohol, etc. And so what's happened in progressive Christianity is they've abandoned truth and they've embraced cultural norms and consider themselves progressive. Well, so Breitbart said that politics is downstream from culture, but the church is supposed to be upstream from culture and driving culture. But when our idol is to be relevant instead of true, then we have problems.
So let me, as I was coughing, thanks for bailing me out, Rob. So the idea of progressive, you must understand, comes from this German secular historicist view of history. So we as Christians have a very specific biblical view of history. From creation to the eschaton, we know from God creating the earth to Christ's return and rule on earth, we know how history unfolds. And Jack, you speak out, you know, beautifully on this quite often, where the left also has a view of history, though. And this is what Hegel came up with, which is this view that we are marching through history towards an inevitable utopia here on earth. So the word progressive and Christianity, they're actually incompatible. It means that you think you're going to play a role here on earth to try and create something closer to a utopia. The Bible speaks exactly the opposite of that.
Exactly
Bob,
right.
and Bob, you know all about the threat of the progressive era, which was really kind of accelerated by Woodrow Wilson and John Dewey and these people in the early 1900s that felt as if all of a sudden that we can now master the world because of our supreme intellect. And so I really challenge Christians. I don't know if all of them understand that depth or complexity of it, but they're participating in some very sinister things.
Yeah.
And everyone should listen to Charlie. He understands this, and communism, the idea that government could control everybody and everything, obviously wasn't working well. They didn't understand how free enterprise would create wealth, and that the poorest people would own parts of Ford Motor Company. And so therefore, after World War I, they all got together and it's called the Frankfurt School, where they decided we're going to get something else other than this economic model. It's not working so well.
That's right.
The blacks in America, if you just took their income, it would be the 15th richest nation on the planet. So therefore, we're going to have to divide this up some way or another, other than economically, and so that's when they started this critical race theory, and where they began to divide people according to the group. They moved into the Catholic Church with liberation theology. Fortunately, Pope John Paul the Great came in and knocked it in his head. Now it's moving into the Christian Church, where, here's the point, there's only one thing that changes hearts.
You meant Protestant Church.
Yes, moving in the Protestant Church, excuse me. And there's only one thing that changes people's hearts, that's a relationship with Christ.
Amen.
Now, if you're talking about anything other than that, Satan's just pleased his punch.
That's right.
And so he's talking about the poor and helping the disadvantaged and helping this and that, as long as you're talking about anything other than what changes souls. And so then, well, what's the matter with you? You don't want us to talk about race in church? You must be a racist. Rather than talk, no, what we want to do is that we understand when we follow him, that's what e pluribus unum. We are then made one. God made us of one blood and one flesh. And their desire, Satan's desire, is to divide it and conquer. Christ's desire is to bring us together, and this nation gave the example that when you do that, you prosper.
And what's so sad is this is so enticing, this theology, this progressive Christianity.
Sounds noble.
Yeah, it sounds like worldly. Yes. Obviously, it just sounds just so comfortable. It sounds so enticing, but they are changing the definition of words consistently. What is justice? What is equality? Yeah. And they're constantly just, we talk about moving the goalposts consistently. That's what they're doing, and they're using the word of God totally out of context.
Let me say what you do to listen to that, to be very careful, is that they never talk about personal responsibility. It's always collectively we should help the poor and the disadvantaged and the feed.
Or you're an oppressor.
And all they talk about, and it sounds very noble when they're saying, but they never talk about individual accountability to God. And that's the distinction that made America great.
And I think what's so important too, as pastors, you guys know this and can speak on this. I'd love to hear what you have to say about. So many people are just, they're not exegesing the word. It's an eisegesis way of looking at things. I'm going to read the word, and it's like, here, what does it mean to you? It's like, well, what was the intention of that written word?
John, here's the key, and I've said it a few times already. When we teach the word on Sunday and on Wednesdays, we believe that this word of God, the Bible doesn't contain God's word, it is God's word. And so when we teach it, it affects the hearts and minds of men. It changes them. It's not a group thing. Nobody walks into heaven holding group hands. It's an individual thing. But the power of the gospel so transforms the heart. Isn't it interesting that one name, Jesus, has brought all of us guys together? Why? Because he has individually transformed us. And what pastors need to do today is to get back into the pulpit, instruct their people, disciple the people, and let them, we've got a campaign that we hope soon will be launched in California, where I'm asking if the government will let the church take on the homeless issue. Let the church take on the abortion issue. If you're in the government...
Especially in a place like California.
Exactly. The church is the answer in California. And I actually believe California is waking up. I know that sounds crazy, but I think the church can do a better job.
And then working with people like Jack Hibbs and Charlie and Bob, Turning Point USA, like, why do you feel like it's so important to just stop talking about it and actually just take action on these things while we got about a minute left?
Well, it is our responsibility to as Jack pointed out. And while we've been building buildings, budgets, and baptisms, the 3 Bs, the secular progressive left has dominated the ecclesia, the public square. And we've been playing church while they have been in the public square setting standards that have created the highest poverty, highest homelessness, highest taxes, highest debt. And we need to be involved in that to transform it for the sake of our neighbors who we love. And it requires hard work. And you got to be in the middle of it. Good government happens with good people, and we need to disciple them to be those folks in a constitutional republic that can lead us out of this mess.
That's why these conversations are so important too. Like, people need to know what biblical love and biblical truth are. The world's going to tell you exactly what you want to hear. They want you to be comfortable. They want you to say, like, whatever path you choose, that could probably lead to God. Like, there's a universalism behind that, but people need to hear the cold, hard truth. And that's what you're hearing right now. And there's times with maybe us in our individual lives where it feels somewhat uncomfortable. And you might feel a little bit uncomfortable here, but we are going to talk about that next, talking about what the church needs right now. We'll see you in a few minutes.
All right, guys, you have signed up, right? You've joined freedomsquare.com. If you haven't, why not? This should have happened a decade ago. How did somebody not think of this earlier? If you're a business owner, we have a business directory to promote your business to patriots across the nation. So if you want to buy American, if you want to sell American, we have a business directory. Whatever it is, go now.
Join us in the fight for freedom. Welcome to Freedom Square.
Hey everybody, welcome back to TPUSA Live. This is a special faith edition of TPUSA Live from TPUSA HQ in Phoenix, Arizona. We got Pastor Rob McCoy, we got Pastor Jack Hibbs, Charlie Kirk, and former Congressman Bob McEwen. We need to talk about what the church needs right now. So we could constantly bring up all this progressive Christianity, these woke ideologies, identity politics, everything that's just vying for our attention. But we need to talk about what we need to do, what the solutions are. Tell me if I'm wrong here, but I believe people need to hear that we are a prosperous, free, incredible nation, but we are not God's chosen people, and this is not God's chosen land. So when we think about something like that, we still feel like we are blessed by God, but while we're just getting so much pushback by worldly things, how do you pastor a church and make sure people in America are hearing the cold, hard truth like we're giving them here in a place like this?
I make sure, John, that as I go through the Word of God, I believe that scripture that I'm teaching on, for example, next Sunday, it is going to be relevant to the world. Mm-hmm. I don't ever have to try to make the Bible relevant. I think a pastor, an expositor, does great harm when he goes into the study and into the preaching thinking, well, how am I going to make this relevant? If he just delivers the goods, the people are living out their lives, and again, that word goes to the answer. And so we don't have to be accepted by the culture. We don't have to test the wind to see what's going on, what's popular. If we stick and stand to the truth, then the people will gravitate to the truth. And with all the falsehood that's out there today, I actually believe it works to the advantage of Christianity, true Christianity.
Mm-hmm. And so there's teaching and there's action. So I heard Jack give a phenomenal sermon. I was right up there, front row, when you gave the sermon on Romans 1. It was terrific. Jack spent the whole sermon on like 5 verses. That's how you know you got a really good preacher. Mm-hmm. Rob is the same way. But you have the teaching and you have the action. What do I mean by that? So Jack has been teaching for years about courage, about truth, and about properly ordering your life. Well, then when the church came under attack, all of a sudden Jack then had to act, not just teach, and he did that. It wasn't even a question. For the pastors that have never taught on courage and truth and a properly ordered life, they said to lock down, they said, I guess that's what we do. So all of a sudden, all the teaching of your congregation, if it's not rooted in truth, then the action won't follow.
And then I think that's 1 Peter. It says always be prepared to share with people the hope that you have. So there's
that's right.
There's that idea where it's we're always under attack as Christians. The church has always been under attack, but it seems like there's been an absolute onslaught.
Yeah.
And you talk about the armor of God, how we need to be on offense consistently. We can be on offense with God's word.
Yes, John, guys, is it wrong for me to say this publicly? But
maybe. What are you going to say?
I wouldn't. With what we've gone through, I'm sorry for those who have died and the COVID experience and for the person that had a heart attack. We're pastors. We deal with that every day. But I've got to tell you, the salvations, the baptisms, in 9 months we baptized 2,400 people. The church has exploded. Why? Because people are driving near and far to get truth. I thank God for the fact that His truth endures every kind of hit. His truth endures every kind of crisis. We've watched it happen, and frankly, by His grace, we're ready for the next crisis.
Does that mean that we need a revival? I feel like that's something that's constantly, you hear murmurs about this, it's almost like time for a revival. So when you hear things like that, do you see truth to that, or how do you go about that?
So the foremost historian on revival was J. Edwin Orr.
That's right.
And he said that an awakening always comes before revival. And he said revival's like Judgment Day. You're made aware of how you've been separated from God. And really right now, we thought we were strong in our faith, but we worship fear more than we worship faith because we're scared and we exchange our liberty out of fear, thinking that we're going to get safety, and we get neither. We lose both. And so this reveals it, and then people awaken to the fact that, I'm not really aligned with what he wants. And so they come back, as Jack was pointing out. We've baptized, like Jack, we've baptized more people in 6 months than the attendance of our church was 6 months ago. And that's because people are coming and they're looking for the reality of that which has action attached to it. And we're standing in faith, in opposition to tyranny, and they're moved by it because they're dealing with it too.
So to back up what you just said, in our last service where we saw people make a decision for Christ, John, by far, most of them were probably 30 and under, by far.
Same here,
Yeah.
And have never darkened the doors of a church.
Yeah, correct.
Well, people are looking for a sense of purpose right now.
Absolutely.
Like, I think there's just an identity crisis consistently with people. It's just like, well, you need to align to this political party, or you need to be a part of this, or this is like, you're gay, you're straight, you're black, you're white. Like, that's who you are. Like, people are just finding out, like, that's empty. And that's the world just telling you that's who you are. So they're looking for purpose. Yeah. And it seems like, luckily, there's churches like yours and other churches that are standing on truth and actually have their doors open for people to come in.
Yep.
But John, what if you don't have a church? Or what do you do? And let's just go with the definition. Sin is anything that separates us from God. And David said, thy word have I hid in my heart, my mind, that I might not sin, separate me from God. So if a person is watching this and say, what do I do? If you go to the scriptures, that's his explanation to us as to what we do, and it comes into our heart, and then it draws us towards him. So that's the solution. When you get together at the church, that's even better. And Rob mentioned about the fear and where we all are. Fear hath torments. And the way that Hitler told the Jews, you need to sit in this corner of the town because people don't like you, I'm going to protect you. And why are you putting walls around the ghetto? Well, that's to protect you, we'll keep you safe. Well, why do I have to wear this star? Well, that's so the police will know to protect you. And so the idea of using fear is a manipulative thing. Well, the scripture says he hath not given us a spirit of fear, but of joy,
power, love,
and of a sound mind. And so those are the opposites of fear, a sound mind. You're scared. But we'll talk later.
And wrapping up
20
with
seconds.
This,
Purpose is one of my favorite English words. It comes from a Greek word telos, which we get the word telescope from, which means far out in the distance, that which should be aimed for. You remove God, you remove Christ, that's why people don't have purpose.
And we can all agree that prayer is such a powerful thing too. And we talk about how we can have these discussions and pray for our enemies. We're going to tell you all about that next, and one last thing.
Good Ranchers, straight from the American farm. 100% American meat, 100% of the time. Delivered straight to your door.
Wait, are those my Good Rancher steaks? I'll be taking these.
Claim your 10 free bistro fillets with your next order with promo code TPUSA Live at goodranchers.com.
Welcome back to TPUSA Live. I can't believe it's almost over. This special faith edition of TPUSA Live has been so uplifting and so encouraging and so educational. I know to me, sometimes I wish I could just sit back and just listen to you guys like, hey, you got a few minutes, just talk. I'll just hold a cue card. But we need to talk about how we can pray for our country and love our enemies. How can people go about doing that, and people we disagree with consistently in this hyper-politicized world?
Well, I want to qualify by first of all saying thanks, John. This has been a wonderful time, and thank you to Turning Point for putting this forward. When I ran for office, I learned something. People aren't the enemy, they're the opportunity. And you can't hate someone you're praying for. And I would always pray for my opponent. I would pray for those folks on the dais with me. And I started to have a community mindset. pray for kings and those in authority that we would live quiet and peaceable lives in all godliness and reverence. You need to know who your school board members are, city council members, and all the issues that are dealing to allow us to live quiet and peaceable lives in all godliness and reverence, and we'll watch something happen. That's my suggestion.
And you've been in an interesting space, Bob. So like, how do you go about praying for them and loving people on the other side of the aisle?
I just piggyback on what Rob said, is that all of this has been entrusted to us. People sacrificed, they invented it, they created it, and they believed in it, and now this wonderful thing has been handed to us. If we don't know who our school board members are, we don't know who our city councilmen are, we say we have term limits on our state representative. Who is your state representative? Unless we're involved, then we will lose it and we'll stand before God. If you took all the money going for global evangelism from the entire planet, increased it 5.5 times, that's still not as much as America does. We have been entrusted with it. We're going to stand before God on how we use this opportunity.
With a few minutes left.
Our elected officials are not exempt from the gospel, so we have lovingly targeted our elected officials by praying for them, telling them we pray for them, for their family. And guess what? They attend our church, and it matters. They know where they're loved, and so they gravitate toward love.
Yeah.
The Greeks had many different words for love. Rob, you've talked about this. Jack, you've talked about this. It's somewhat of kind of a staple sermon. Eros, storge, agape, phileo, just to name a few. But the greatest form of love, as the Greeks knew it, was to tell the truth. And if you think about it, in a time of crisis, the last thing you want from a doctor or from someone who's trying to navigate you is anything but the total truth. You want to know exactly what has to be done and how to do it. We've lost that. We think love is somehow a watered down version of what's happening around you because we're afraid to have a momentary reaction of offense. When the greatest act of love we can do is, of course, to be ambassadors of that truth with grace and tenderness, but also not water it down at all. And that means from every single issue that we're dealing with, I know the people that love me the most are willing to tell me the hardest things that are objectively true. And we have lost that in the church culture and in faith culture because we have blurred this idea of trying to be liked versus what is true. And if we want to love other people, tell them the truth.
And there's love in that accountability too, where it's like we need people to keep us accountable too. I know you guys are a great group of guys. I'm so glad that I'm able to sit down and chat with too. We need that accountability. That's the best way for us to love each other, love our congregation, and love our fellow Americans consistently. So I'm so glad we had this conversation, and I really hope this was just uplifting to you as it was to me. But definitely, God bless every single one of you, everybody that's watching this right now. But if you want some more information about what we're going over at Turning Point, or even some things that are going on in the news, you can go to the live feed, tpusa.com/live feed. But hey, we got another great hour of TPUSA Live coming up next. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us. See you guys.
For all my design-servative lovers out there, you're gonna die at this episode. Joining me are two conservative women who are killing it in the design world. If you don't already know who they are, then you will thank me later. They are a few of the top experts in their field and have an eye for what's in and what's out when it comes to all things interior design and decor. Not only are they fabulous, amazing, chic interior designers and so talented, but they are both conservatives in a very, very liberal industry. Plus, I'm going to get the inside scoop on all the discrimination that happens to conservatives in the design world. Looking at you, HGTV. Then they'll let us know what's in and what's out, as well as some tips for those of you who want to revamp your home or a room in your house or your apartment on a budget. And then you'll get the tea on my apartment redesign. Hint, it's not as pink as you would think. Okay, let's go. My first guest is a TPUSA ambassador, mother, wife, owner, and principal designer of Mend Design, alongside her equally talented husband. Please welcome to the spillover, Chrissy Hammer. Today's episode is all interior design related, Chrissy. So of course I had to have you on because this is your jam. Like, this is what you do. So did you always want to be an interior designer or do remodels?
You know, I came into this space really naturally. My mom was always interested in it growing up, so it was something I was familiar with. You know, I was sort of like organically always interested in it because she was interested in it. It isn't actually what I studied in school, though. I studied English literature in college. So
Really?
I didn't study it until after I had kids. And then I started getting back into my passion, which was creativity in interior spaces. And then it's sort of evolved since then.
I always wonder about that because, you know, there's so many things that I'm passionate about, and I didn't go to college. I went to like 2 semesters of community college. Then I started working my way up in radio, so I dropped out and I never finished or got my college degree. And I always think about that, like, you know, I'm super into true crime and forensics and forensic interviewing children and things like that. And I'm like, oh man, I wonder if I could go back to school. So that's super cool that later in life you chose, you know what, this is a dream that I have. I want to follow it, because I think a lot of women can relate to that.
Oh, for sure. Especially because in my culture, which is Christian, LDS, Mormon culture, the girls generally go to school, but they're married usually when they're in school. And then the goal is mostly get married, have kids, stay home. That's generally, which I think is an incredibly noble and wonderful thing to do.
Well, you live in Utah and your business is in Utah. And obviously Utah is like the mecca for these uber rich, like I'm thinking of the Rach Parcells, like the uber rich fashion bloggers that have these massive houses. So are a lot of your clients, I know you can't say who your clients are necessarily, but do you have any of these like huge?
I do. Yes. I don't think I can say who it is, but yes.
That's okay. I just figure because you're in Utah and everything.
Yes. It's incredible. And Studio McGee is based out of Utah. They have a really popular interior design show on Netflix.
I think I follow them.
Oh, yeah. Their work is fantastic.
Well, there's different types of interior designers and renovators. I mean, when I think of Shiplap, obviously, I think
of
Chip and Joanna Gaines.
Yeah.
So how would you describe you and your husband's style and specialty? Like, what is your all signature?
Like in terms of style?
Yeah.
I would say we're very transitional. And transitional, to define it, is like a mixture of old world and modern. So like, you know, very traditional finishes, but with pops of modern so that you get the best of both worlds. I don't like to stay too stark in one style because then that's the only one you can follow. I like to be sort of eclectic in that. But I really like using vintage pieces to inspire sort of our design.
Me too. I really am into that too. Like a mix and match, some new stuff and then some stuff that when you're antiquing or go into these like, I don't know, gently used furniture stores and you find those unique pieces. I like doing stuff and having stuff that nobody else has. It's like a big thing.
Like you want it to look like you were in Rome and you went like to a super cute antique store and it's been there for 3,000 years and you found a door and you're using that in your butler's pantry.
Yeah, for conservatives especially, we want to look super worldly and cultural because with the mandates, we ain't going anywhere.
We ain't going nowhere.
We ain't going nowhere, so we can't go to Rome and get a cool little, you know, art piece or whatever. Okay, so how far were you guys into your career, owning your own business when HGTV came into the picture?
So we had started the business mostly as a passion project for me because I was a stay-at-home mom and it was very stressful, and Matt was great and was like, hey, you should do something that gives you like an outlet. So that was in 2012. We started our business in 2013. And then in 2016, we took on some bigger projects. And then in 2019, HGTV reached out to us. So it had been several years before they had contacted us, and they found us through Instagram.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Like, were you guys sending out pitches to networks, or they just saw your Instagram and were like, "Hey, we're interested"?
That's how HGTV does it. They won't take pitches. They only scout. So they will only take you on. They might take pitches from very old, like the Property Brothers have their own production company, so they might take pitches from Property Brothers before they've done much scouting, but generally that's not the way HGTV does it.
So when they reached out to you, I mean, what was their reasoning? What did they say they liked, or what was the idea for a show that they had that they thought you would be a good fit for?
So we tackle remodels and old remodels, and that's kind of cool. You know, we don't like want to tear it down. We want to rebuild and make it beautiful. And a lot of companies, especially in a place like Utah where there's a lot of land still, a lot of construction companies are building new instead of taking on remodels. And we specialize in remodels. So I think that was part of the allure for HGTV. They like that, you know, that an old house, make it pretty, make the family happy, you know, that sort of algorithm of shows that they like. They like the landscape. Utah's beautiful. They like the fact that we were Mormon. You know, I mean, people are always like, oh, look at those Mormons.
Right. Yeah.
People are always super interested in that culture. And I mean, that's why they brought the housewives there, because that's part of like, oh, let's get all these fancy women. And
everybody looks good. Everybody's very attractive in Mormon culture. Everybody has money.
Yes.
They've got huge families. I mean, it is prime reality show real estate.
Yes. Yeah. And they had tried with Studio McGee, our same production company, and they actually passed on Studio McGee before they made it to network. And then as our show was coming out, Netflix had picked up Studio McGee. So they kind of came out at the same time. But that was in 2019, before the world sort of tipped on its end and everyone lost their minds.
Okay, so everything at first is going smoothly.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're so pumped. They come out, they do proof of concept, they do sizzle reels. It goes to the board of HGTV and then Discovery, because Discovery owns HGTV. So it goes to like several board meetings. And they get pitched, I don't know, 1,000 proof of concepts a month.
Wow.
And they picked ours. And they're like, oh, we love it. They picked 12 a year.
So once they pick you, how far in the shooting or producing process does this show get? Did it have a name?
Yeah, once they say, yeah, we love it, let's do season, we got these people, they're awesome, then it's a working titles pretty immediately. But that can change even up till the day that it airs.
So are they sending crew out and they're filming you guys doing renovations?
Oh yeah, the whole 9 yards.
How many episodes did you film?
Well, we filmed more footage than episodes because they had ordered the pilot to get approved from the board. They weren't even planning on airing the pilot when they got the sign off from Discovery in December of 2019. Oh, we love them. We're going to do 13 episodes, but let's get the pilot out and in front of the board just to make sure it's a great show. It wasn't even supposed to air. Then 2020 happens. Everything's delayed. Our show gets pushed back. And then we complete it and it airs in February of 2021.
Oh, so it actually airs.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. They call us and say, hey, we're going to air the show. Which we weren't expecting them to do. We thought they were just going to call us and be like, okay, we're continuing.
And they had paid you
filming.
and everything?
Oh, yeah, they'd done. And the production alone, I think, was like $1 million.
Wow.
For just this one that they did film. And then they aired it and they weren't supposed to. It was supposed to just go to the board and they were all going to sign off like they had been the entire process of saying, the Hammers are great. We're so excited. We love their product. They did an incredible job. There were no problems, no red flags. And we blew it out of the water for the airings. Like it was
the ratings.
The ratings. It was bananas. Like they said, we're going to we want to see how it does, which was weird. Like the producers hadn't told us that at that point. We're like, I thought we were just doing this for the board. They're like, oh, we want to see how it does. So this is in February of 2021. So remember, culturally, we're going through a lot of like cancel culture and all this is happening at the same time. And it airs and they say, we're going to air it right after a new episode of Property Brothers. So they're going to have a huge audience. We just want you to retain some of them. If you can retain half, we'll feel good about it. Not only did we keep their entire audience, we added another, I don't know if I can say the amount, but it was a huge amount of people. And this is from no marketing from HGTV. It was just grassroots.
Oh my gosh.
We hit up our influencer friends and we're like, hey, can you post that we have this episode airing?
Right.
And Mormons are always very interested in other Mormons in entertainment.
Sure.
So they're always like, oh yeah, we want to see what these folks in Utah are doing. So it just killed it. And we pulled in a younger audience than normal.
Were they wanting you to make your faith, like being Mormon, a part of the show?
I think naturally it would have, just because Mormon culture is sort of like lifestyle.
Okay.
You know, like the way that we live our life is very much in line with our faith. So I think that was probably part of it. Anyway, so we have these incredible ratings and we're just waiting for them to be like, okay, we're good to go. This is going to be the schedule moving forward. And they called us in, I don't know, maybe 5 weeks after it aired. And they were like, HGTV is passing.
Passing why?
So we're just as shocked as the producers that are telling us this. Like, what are you talking about? We've been working on this for 2 years at this point. Like, what do you mean you're passing? Like, this is so, what? And one of the producers on the FaceTime, I mean, they're crying because the production company is different than HGTV. So like production companies produce and they sell to this media company. The media airs it for ad revenue, you know, so that's the way they do it. But our production company produced Fixer Upper, Restored by the Fords, literally every major show on HGTV. So they have a great relationship with them. And we were just so shocked. They were shocked. They were crying. We were crying. Like, what are you talking about? Like, this is so, what? I mean, because our contracts were like 13 episodes, you know?
And they'd already aired one.
I already aired one. And they said, and we knew the ratings because the producers had told us the ratings. And they said, well, you're just another white married Christian family and America's heading in another direction.
Blatant racism.
Like, it was so shocking. My mind was like, what on earth does our race or our faith or our marital status have to do with any of this? Like, did we create an incredible product in terms of the show and timelines and relationships with the production company? I mean, everything was great. We're very easy people. And they were like, no, American exceptionalism essentially it's dead. Like and then they also said, this part's crazy. Had you been Black or Hispanic, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. You already would be in a 3-year contract.
So they admitted. It's not about skills. It's not about ratings. It's not, none of that matters. If you look a certain way, you're the one that's getting the shows. You're booking the commercials. You're booking the movies, or you're getting the promotion at work. Like, this is leftist culture at this point.
Yeah, we even had the president of our production company. Well, in the presidency of the production company, contact us and say, I have no idea what's going on. Like,
did you ever in your life, Chrissy, think that you would be discriminated against literally for the color of your skin as a white woman?
No.
I mean, that doesn't even make it. It's crazy. Like, it's so backwards. Everything's switched.
Yeah, it's, and I grew up in Los Angeles. Like, my upbringing was hardly vanilla. Like, it just wasn't even something that if you do well at something, it doesn't matter what you look like. If you produce something incredible, and I think that's the sad part, is that Americans are losing all this incredible content and products. All these things we're missing because people upstairs decide that we need to have a racial agenda. Like, and it's not going to stop Matt and I from producing great stuff. All it did was inspire us to work even harder and create more things. But what you are when you do lower the level is you're now telling people of color or marginalized people that they don't have to produce something as great as the other people will. So we will rise and we will continue to produce great things, and we're asking them not to produce great things. You know what I mean? So it's like,
how much did you and your family, though, have tied up in this? Like, you were assuming that you were going to be making all this money from the show and doing all this. I mean, how did this pulling the rug out from under you, how did this sudden change affect your family business?
Oh, it was crazy. The sacrifice that because it was 2 years of our life. So not only did we turn down jobs because we had to be prepared for the load that we were going to take on. But we didn't sell our house because our house was part of the story, and we wanted to move. Like, almost immediately when we were contacted by HGTV, we were going to sell our house. So we stayed in our house for an extra 2 years. They monitored our content, like what we produce, our likeness is what they call it. So we weren't allowed to like post without them, or, you know, like our verbiage had to be really careful. We definitely couldn't post pro-America, pro-conservative. Like,
yeah, nothing political.
Like that.
And how many kids do you guys have?
We have 5. We're blended.
Okay, yeah, because you guys both weren't married previously. Then you guys got married. You both have kids from previous marriages. So did you have to have a conversation sitting down with your kids and say, hey, guess what? Because we're white, we're not getting a TV show now.
Yes, that's exactly what we had to do. And with the little ones, because we have older kids, the little ones didn't quite understand it. And it was a heartbreaking day, and it was really sad. But the big kids, and we raise our kids to be involved in a sense. So they already know this is going on culturally. Like as a society, they understand. So when we said it, it wasn't shocking to them. They were like, yeah, that makes sense. Sure. I mean, the day before it aired, I was panicking, going through my Instagram like, oh my gosh, how can I undo all those posts I've liked from Larry Elder? You know what I mean? I was like, oh my gosh, I have to unfollow all these people.
Big
Matt
layer.
has to, I was just so scared that our media presence was also going to be a problem in going forward. So, and I do think that was part of it. We had an American flag. They made us take it down for the show. And
I feel like we're in an era now where cable TV that's just not the prime source people go to get content. However, HGTV has seemed to really just stand alone amongst these cultural changes of everybody wanting to consume streaming products. HGTV is still, I mean, especially with like young housewives and things like that, like that is who still is really consuming that. And it's interesting to me that they wanted to drop you guys because they just thought you weren't diverse enough or that there would be controversy or whatever. And then, I think about another network, which is Magnolia. And of course, we have to talk about homework.
Oh my gosh.
Do you know these people? So just a refresher here in case you don't know.
Yeah.
The show Homework on Magnolia Network came under scrutiny. It was pulled off the air when allegations were made against these couple renovators, Andy and Candace Meredith. Allegedly, they went way over budget. They didn't meet deadlines. They caused damages to like historic homes that they were working on. According to the Merediths, they felt like the timing of these allegations so close to the premiere date was on purpose to hurt them. I mean, what is your take as somebody who's kind of been in this world, in the interior design world? What are people saying, and what's the scoop on the Merediths and the show Homework?
So we don't know them personally, but it's a small community. Like Utah is very small. Everyone knows everyone, especially because of our faith. Like 6 degrees of separation is
They're
more
in Utah
like
also?
one. Yes.
Ooh. You're the perfect person to talk about
People have been messaging Matt and I since this came out, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, tell us everything."
Yes, tell us everything.
So we know that they have been like involved in some shady business deals before this came about. So we actually are perplexed as to how they even got on the network, because when we were on the network, they did a background check with us that was so intense. They were asking us about speeding tickets we had in 2007.
Whoa.
Yeah, like explain to us why you got this ticket.
Do they have a criminal record?
Well, I don't know if I can get into crazy details about it, but it's not. It was a huge lawsuit.
Okay.
And it was bad for them. And I think they lost their house, and I think it was really bad. So
they have a history. Yeah, they've got a history. Shady business deals are like scammery.
Yes. So we know a lot of people that have been burned by them. Like we know people personally that are like, oh, it's horrible. It's exactly what they say. And LDS people, Mormon people generally don't like lie about things just to get in the limelight. Like I don't see all these couples rising up to get their 15 minutes of fame to get the show off. Like that's just not in our nature as a culture to be like that. So I was always super skeptical of the Merediths saying, oh, they're just saying that because of the timing of the show. You know what I mean? So people said that they, that it was true and that they were burned and that they did some bad business dealings. And I honestly don't know why they thought they could take on a production like that. I mean, we had 200 people on our production. I don't know if that's really the number, but High Noon Productions, which produced our show, has hundreds of employees working on every show. So I don't know. And the Merediths took on the production by themselves.
Yeah, that sounds
and
stupid.
sold it to Magnolia. And my mind is just
like
so
why
completely
that was accepted.
Like why that was accepted.
Also, they're white.
I know.
So when you see these other like shows that have blown up and stuff,
but they're not conservative.
They're conservative.
They're not.
Oh, they're not. Okay. So do you feel like they did find out about you guys being conservative and that might have played a part?
Oh, I know that they know that we're conservative because our production team knows. So. And I really think they stalk us on social media. Like, I think that they have someone that goes in and does a huge, on Bachelor, like if you've done, someone's getting that dirt from someone in 2013 what they did. You know what I mean? I don't know if it's just people on the internet. It's very well probably people within the networks who are going in and seeing, is this person going to come back to bite us as a network? And then the president of HGTV, 2 weeks after they canceled our show, was on Vanity Fair and did an entire interview about how they're going to try and diversify their talent.
In what way?
She said, I have this article pulled up right here. She said, HGTV is cognizant of a lack of diversity in its roster. We feel, quotes, we feel like we have probably not done the best job in terms of our talent, and it's time for that to change.
Starting with the hammers.
Literally. And this is coming from the woman who did ultimately put the axe on our show. We have, over the last year and a half, been actively diversifying. So year and a half, hammers are 6 months prior to year and a half. So we came on and signed contracts before all this stuff happened in 2020. You know what I mean? I mean, we're like, we fit the mold during contract time. So we think that we just went through all of this stuff and they had to air it to get their money back because the show was so expensive.
Wow.
So they needed the ad revenue.
Not stick with the show.
Oh, I'm sure.
So now where are things at when it comes to the hammers and a renovation TV show? Are you still shopping around?
Well, we do have a couple of options that we're still shopping around, and we have a couple production companies that we're doing things with. We have a podcast, Hammer It Forward.
And that's really relationship focused.
Yeah, it's relationship focused and family focused and business focused. And Matt and I are super transparent. So we just tell funny stories. We have a great banter between each other. So we talk a lot about all the things on our podcast. So we do that with a different production company. And then we have a show sort of in the works with another production company. So we'll see, but we're just so busy right now that it's kind of crazy. So we're just taking it day by day and just loving it.
All right, so let's get into the fun stuff.
Yes.
What is your dream type of project to tackle? Like doing a full-blown remodel for a client or going in to really emphasize one special, unique room?
Oh my gosh, that's a hard question. Because we've done both. I would say my very favorite is when a client sort of gives me full reign and is like, I don't know what I'm doing. Here's the keys to my house. Contact me in 4 months when you're done. And I'll ask them a few questions about who they are and what they like, and then just try my very best to build them in the design and then watch them just be blown away.
So what's the most unique quirk or, I don't know, feature or, something that a client liked that you had to include somehow in a design or incorporate in a design?
Oh, man. That's a hard one. For the house, the HGTV house we did, they always like there to be something super special. And this little couple had a bakery. Their parents had a bakery, and their little pie shop sign, I had to incorporate that pie shop. She loved it. She was like, I want this somewhere in the design. So we got some paintable wallpaper, and I painted the sign all in her craft room on the wallpaper, and she cried, and it was so tender, and had a picture of her framed in the little uniform she wore when she was a teenager, and that was really fun. I think everything else we do is so personal to the client, and I don't know if we've done anything super
What do you
quirky.
wish somebody would ask you to do? Like a project you wish someone would, you're just, please, somebody.
I wish someone said, I don't have a budget.
Right.
Because even our uber wealthy people, because we have very wealthy clients, even if our uber wealthy, and they still are like, what's the bottom line? And it just kills my creativity. Yeah, it's like it only goes so far.
Sky's the limit. You could do so many things.
I wish someone was like, I have $5 million. Go remodel my 2,500 square foot house. That would be crazy fun. It would be fun to do a vacation home too. That was outside of just a different architectural type of home, like a colonial home or
Well, you know, I'm obsessed with Spanish Revival right now.
Yes, Spanish Revival. I would love to do that. Not one person has asked me to do Spanish Revival in Utah, so I would love it.
Okay, so do you notice interior design wherever you are? Like if you go to somebody's house or something, you're just like, oh, that looks terrible. Like,
I notice
taking
it
notes?
everywhere. Everywhere I go. It's probably so annoying. I'll be going to the bathroom like, oh, this is nice tile. I really like this tile on the wall.
Yeah, where'd you get it?
Yeah, where's it from?
So your partner on projects is your husband.
Yes.
I'm sure that's super fun, but can also be challenging.
So
how do you
fun.
guys? How do you divvy up your roles on specific projects?
So he does all the yucky things that no one wants to do: budget, project management, time schedules. You know,
The man things,
the construction. I don't want to do any of that. So we really separate roles, and we mostly stay in our lanes. Sometimes when we're with a client, they're like, "Is this easy?" I'm like, "Oh, it's so easy." And Matt's like, "What are you doing? It's not easy." You know, and sometimes he'll try to throw out design type, and I'll look at him like, "No, you don't know what you're doing." So we're good. We're really good at staying in our own lanes.
I mean, it can be, and I'm going through this right now, it can be very expensive to
so
redesign
expensive.
a space, obviously. But what are 3 things that someone can do to start the process of redesigning?
Paint. Huge. You can really do some paint and make a huge impact. Like, I've been seeing a lot of people do 3/4 of the wall. So you have like a line or an accent. There's any number of things you can do with paint that can just completely change your whole house. I think finding a piece that you really love that's vintage and from a thrift of some kind, and going on Pinterest and figuring out a way that you can make that thrifty thing the most incredible thing in your house. So that's like super affordable and a fun DIY. I think that you can, because the paint is so big, I was like, oh, you can paint over your tiles even. Like they have,
really?
They have tile paint.
Okay,
So you
what
can
is your?
even
I'm
do,
doing
like,
a bunch
stencil.
of stick-on wallpaper.
Yes.
Is that okay?
I think it's very easy for people. I mean, it's not easy. Your hand will hurt so bad. Your arm. You'll be
Well,
like, oh my gosh.
I'm hiring. I have Katie who's coming up next. Katie, who's my interior designer for my home or apartment.
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah.
She's doing it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a disaster. I can't even color within the line. So me trying to put up wallpaper.
No. Yeah, I normally don't suggest peel and stick only because my wallpaper person that does my application would just laugh at me and walk away.
Well, but
and then I don't have time to
rented
do it.
space, but
yes,
for
rented spaces, I think they're incredible. I think it's great, and it's budget because you don't have to pay for somebody. You can just do it yourself. So it's an incredible thing.
What is in and what is out? What do people need to stop doing when it comes to interior design?
People say shiplap is out, and it's so not true. The way Joanna Gaines did it is out, but if you look at any one of your Pinterest boards, I guarantee you there is tongue and groove somewhere in that house, and it looks so stunning and so beautiful. It's always in. It will always be in. Paneling of some sort will always be in, and wood accent walls will always be in. So don't let anyone tell you it's out, because it's not. It really bothers me. But what is out is words on walls. Never, ever in your
live, laugh, love.
Never.
We want to live. We want to laugh. We want to love, Chrissy.
Never put that on your walls. I don't love chevron. There's a difference between chevron and herringbone. I love herringbone. They're very similar. Chevron's out. No chevron. Let's see what else is out. I think that I think white walls are really in, like neutral walls. Unless you're in a small space, like an office or a bedroom, then I think you can paint it a fun color. But don't do your living space like blue or gray or no. It should be white and creamy, something like that. What else is out? I think we've maybe seen our fair share of cement tiles, patterned cement tiles. I think if you get really unique ones that aren't anywhere else, that's cool. But the ones that have been mass printed,
where do you think are the best cost effective and best quality, interior design type of stores or furniture stores or
that people can go to?
Yeah.
I think At Home is a good place for people to get a lot of good things that are knockoff. Amazon has really good stuff too. So does Walmart.
Really?
Yeah, they have tons of designer dupes. It's crazy. Studio McGee dupes. Target, they are killing it. In their interior.
Got so much stuff from Target for my apartment.
Their line is Studio McGee's line at Target is so good. And I think those are all super affordable.
What is up next for you guys?
So we're going to continue with our podcast. We're going to continue with our business. We're going to continue to try and make people's homes so beautiful, raise those babies right, live that American dream. And I was back there at your set, Alex, checking it out.
Yeah.
I feel like you need a refresh.
On Politics?
Yes, on the Politics set. Would you let me do a refresh?
Really?
Yes, I would love to.
Yes, I really, really would like that. It needs it so bad. Let's do
time.
that.
It's time. Let's do it.
Oh my gosh, let's redo the Politics set.
Let's do it.
Chrissy, thanks for coming on the Spillover.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Strong and Sexy Fit. Strong and Sexy Fit is a women's wellness company that has been taking the supplement industry by storm with their powerful and unique formulas. All of their products contain full disclosure labels with no proprietary blends and no artificial colors or flavors. So you know exactly what you are getting in each scoop. They have unique, high-quality formulas and delicious flavors like, oh my gosh, eyes roll back into your head, yummo, like guava colada and lilikoi nectar available in their best-selling fat burners. They even have refreshing greens available in Hawaiian honey tea. I'd also like to mention one of my favorites, their industry-leading Goddess formula, which is perfect for any woman trying to balance out their hormones. Ew! Goddess uses an all-natural approach of vitamins, minerals, and herbs to help your body detox and achieve homeostasis. Benefits include reduced PMS symptoms, sign me up for this, clearing up acne, yes, less stress, better sleep, regulating your cycle. Okay, I just yelled, but because you guys know how passionate I am about that and more. See a full list of benefits on their website, strongandsexyfit.com. Try any of their products today and get 15% off with code SPILLOVER. As if Chrissy Hammer's story wasn't incredible enough, you get a 2-for-1 special today. I really wanted to focus today's episode on amazing conservatives doing phenomenal things in the interior design world. My next guest is another outstanding conservative woman and phenomenal interior designer. Katie Bouchard is the founder and creator of a nonprofit called Pen and Napkin. Okay, the name alone, I love it. It's so perfect. Even better, I'm always looking for creative and unique charities with conservative ties. Pen and Napkin is just that. And I knew you would fall in love with the mission of this charity like I have. If you're a design lover like me, this is the nonprofit for you. Here's what's really neat about it. Pen and Napkin helps families and individuals transition out of homelessness and human trafficking and into fully furnished and decorated homes. They have a team of over 280 designers nationwide who sign up to do projects in almost all 50 states. Pen and Napkin trains these designers and assigns them families and projects. And what absolutely shook me is that 50% of all families that transition into a home from homelessness end up back on the street. But when a homeless family is provided a home that's fully furnished, there is a 98% success rate in ending the homeless cycle in a family's life. What Pen and Napkin is doing is incredible, but there's something else too. Katie agreed to take over the redesign of my apartment. You've probably seen on my Instagram stories, Rugageddon anyone, that I am finally getting grown-up furniture and an actual working theme for the first time in my life. I mean, I'm almost 30. It's probably time, right? So I wanted to have Katie on, not only to share the amazing work she's doing with Pen and Napkin and how you can help, but I also want to get the tea on what she's doing with my apartment, as well as Katie's own experience with TV networks in the interior design world. Yeah, she's got her own story too. And the insane story, I couldn't have written this if I thought of it, of how I was discriminated against for being conservative because of my furniture. Yeah, bet you weren't expecting that. Trust me, I wasn't either. Please welcome to the Spillover, interior designer and founder of Pen and Napkin, Katie Bouchard. Let's start at the beginning, Katie. You actually grew up in a family that has a lot of television ties.
Yes.
And grew up in a Christian conservative house. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So my mom and my dad both worked in television. My mom was a producer. She actually is one of the first female on-air reporters in San Diego. So
Wow.
Anchorman is loosely based on my mom's life.
Oh my gosh.
Not intentionally. She just happens to relate to everything that happens in that movie.
Especially the mahogany floors or whatever.
Just like the creepy guys. Like I have this picture of my mom in the 60s where she's sitting next to a guy with her like Channel 7 pin, and this guy next to her looks just like Brick. Like identical. Like I kid you not. It's the funniest picture. I should have brought it. But yeah, she was an incredible reporter, and then she became a producer for NBC, and my dad was her cameraman. That's how they met. And he's still a cameraman today.
That's super cute. Yeah, and he works for Dr. Phil, right?
He does. Dr. Phil put me through college.
And so did you grow up? Were your parents always Christian, always conservative growing up, or was there kind of a turnaround?
My mom became a believer when she had me. She grew up in a very strict, like, Catholic girls' school, not really Catholic home, but she went to Catholic girls' school, so she didn't really like any idea of religion or anything like that. She left Chicago to pursue her dreams in California, and my dad grew up in a conservative home with a dad as a pastor. So my mom was super liberal, and my dad's super conservative. And then they met working together, and my mom was going through her third divorce and had a 3-year-old little girl, my older sister, and my dad was just there for her through everything. And my dad had just gone through a divorce because his wife didn't want to have kids. And then he fell in love with my sister, like, because she would bring her to work every day. And then they just became a family. And then, they had my brother, got married. And then when she had me, she wasn't expecting me. Shocker, surprise. Sorry, Mom. Late 40s, baby.
Wow.
She was like told that she was in menopause and she couldn't have kids. But then God was like, no, we need one more.
Oh my gosh. So then growing up like that, I mean, did you just was faith always a part of your life? Or did you, like, as you got older, feel like that's when you actually got saved?
No, it was definitely a part of my life growing up, because when I was born, I was like born with the mumps. And so was my mom had the mumps, and she was really sick, and I was almost stillborn. And there was like a prayer chain, and my mom got on her knees for the first time and dedicated my life to God and dedicated her life to God. And she started reading her Bible every day. And I never saw my mom not read her Bible. Like, it was every day. So we went to church every Sunday and heavily involved. My mom was the leader of the dance team. My dad did the sound and the camera work for the church. And yeah, it just was a part of our life, being a part of mission trips and doing all that growing up, going to church camp. Like, it was very, very much our life.
So was your mom on the side really interested in interior design, or how did you get into that business?
I think if it had to choose one of them, it would be my dad. He wanted to be an architect, but he actually dropped out of college because his mom got cancer. So he never pursued that and just started doing film because it made him happy. He was making videos with his buddy and just got into film. But yeah, I think my love for it came from my dad. He loves design, and I used to move my furniture around as a kid just to get my mom's attention. So she'd come home from work really late from a shoot, and she'd like trip over my dresser because I moved it. And I remember just being so little and like pushing my back up against the wall on my feet just to get the dresser across the room. I was just that kid. I would make staircases out of books and stack them up to my window so I could make a patio out on the air conditioning unit outside my window. I just always was designing ever since I was little.
And so did you go to college for it, or
Yeah.
how did you actually start making it into a career?
I actually went to Cal State Long Beach, which is a very liberal school, and I studied general design. So I actually was a part of creating a new design program. Because they had a degree program that was very flawed, they would you'd graduate with an interior design degree only if you got into their interior program. But they had all these students that would apply and not get in, but they would never get a degree. They'd go to school for 6-7 years and never get a degree.
Right.
So we created this general design degree, and I already had a job waiting for me, so I just wanted to graduate and go. And then I was working for a company called Tangram Studio, designing custom furniture.
And so you wanted to start this nonprofit because you witnessed something working as a furniture designer in downtown LA. What was it that really pierced your heart and led to creating what is now known as Pen and Napkin?
Well, we had just opened our showroom in downtown LA in the Pac Mutual building, which is a really famous building in downtown LA. And we were on the 12th floor, and it was this beautiful view. And I was looking out, and I saw this woman, pulling her dinner out of the trash, basically, and eating off other people's scraps. And I felt like God was just telling me, this is your new client. I want this to be your new clientele. And driving into LA every single day and seeing people experiencing homelessness, it can wear on you.
You can either choose to shut it off or you can choose to see it, you know? So I couldn't shut it off. I just, it would be too heartbreaking, and giving money and food and little care packages wasn't doing it for me anymore, you know? And so I really asked God, like, I want to help. I want to do something. I was literally offering myself to be the hands and feet. Like, can I do something to help? And I didn't know what it was. And then I would say that was like the first moment where I remember like that, him saying to me, like, this is going to be your new clientele. And then when I was driving on the 405 freeway, actually following a boy for a date, and we were in traffic, and God whispered pen and napkin in my ear, just the name. I had no idea what it was, but it was such a cool name. And I was like, that could be like a design house. That could be a fashion line. That could be a furniture line. That could be anything. Like, it's a blank canvas. It really could be anything. It could be a think house where you solve problems and you get designers together and you solve needs. And I ended up telling the guy I was dating at the time about it, and he actually bought the domain for me and set up all the things I would need for a website, because he did that. He was in marketing, and he really encouraged me. And later on, 2 years later, when I was actually ready to start Pen and Napkin, I had to call him and be like, can I have my domain back?
Oh, no. That is so something that would happen to me, let me tell you.
He was so sweet about it, though. He had no problem with it. He was so proud of me for pursuing it, and he was a big part of the reason why I was excited about the name in the beginning. So, but yeah, so Pen and Napkin started, and then I kind of sat on it for like 2 years. I just owned the domain, online website name, or whatever you call it. And then I just waited.
What did you wait for?
For me to be brave enough to quit my job and pursue it. Frankly, like I wasn't ready to quit my job. I was making really good money. I was working with clients. Like, I got to help design Hulu's first office before they blew up.
Oh my gosh.
I got to design Pinkberry's office.
Okay, wait. This is very controversial fun fact about me. I love regular original tart Pinkberry yogurt.
Yes.
And I had an ex-boyfriend who used to make fun of me and say I like spoiled milk ice cream.
What?
Because it's got that like tart flavor.
No, it's so good. The original flavor is the only flavor. It's so good with
that's
strawberries.
Phenomenal.
I love it. Yeah, I know. And
wait, those are so like iconic, fun brands. Like when I think about just the aesthetic of Pinkberry and Hulu, that's so neat.
Yeah. And I got to work with Urban Decay. Like, honestly, like some of the best. And the owner of Urban Decay is a doll. Like, honestly, like some of the best companies. And I was living it with my mentor and friend and boss. And we were doing it for like 6 years, almost 7 years. And I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to leave the relationships. I didn't want to leave knowing that it was going to blow up. Because now we were doing like, I think when I started, we were doing like 2 million, 5 million a year. And then when I left, we were at 9 million. And she's now probably 20 million a year.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and I'm so proud of them. And they have a new name called Studio Other. But yeah, they're still doing custom office furniture and designing for all these amazing companies. But I had to leave in order to pursue Pen and Napkin. And that was what took me a couple years to really let go of that so I could embrace this, what I felt like was a call in my life. But again, I didn't know what Pen and Napkin was. I just knew the name, and I knew that I had to pursue it.
So then you take this leap where you're like, okay, I'm going to leave this cushy corporate type of job, interior designing for massive brands that we all know and use.
Yes.
And I'm going to start this thing helping furnish homes for homeless people.
Yeah. How did I get there? I told everyone I was going back to school. And I did. I signed up to go back to seminary, actually. And I got a scholarship to go to Bethel Seminary down in San Diego, one of their satellite campuses. And it was during school where I took a class in community development that we did an interview for this transitional living center in El Cajon called East County Transitional Living Center. We love you guys. Just a little shout out. They do amazing work. And I went there and I talked to the community director, and he said, you know, we do all this work for these families. We rehabilitate them, reunify them with their children. We get them jobs, we get them housing, but then we move them into their home with like a laundry basket with like cleaning supplies and, you know, some essentials, but that's it. They don't have any furniture, and they've lived on a transitional center for 6 months to 2 years. Like, think about that.
So they have a roof over their head, but essentially they're still homeless. They're still sleeping on the floor.
Yeah,
they have
empty.
nothing.
And for kids, that's so hard because they're coming from a transitional center where they have, you know, all 3 meals a day, a bunk bed, like community, like all those things. And it's beautiful. But then they go from that, which before that they were homeless. So going from that fully furnished, you know, little apartment to an empty space doesn't feel like a step up, right? It feels like a step down. But for the family, they're excited because they have their own place now. And mom and dad, in the first project we ever did in San Diego, the mom and dad were living separate because they could only have certain amount of kids in each room, and they had 5 kids total. Wow. So the mom and dad were in different rooms for 2 years. So this was the first time they could actually be in a home together as a family, and it was a big deal. But they didn't have any furniture. And so in that moment when he said he needed furniture, and I just left the furniture industry, basically, I was like the Hallelujah chorus, started singing. I had my aha moment, all that sacrifice, living on a farm in Alpine. Like, I did not know what I was doing. I went from the city to the farm, and I was so out of my place. And like going to seminary was hard because I'm not a bookworm like you. I barely read like in high school and college. I did design work. I love to draw, and so I was writing 22-page papers. Like, I was miserable, but I knew that this was the moment why I did it all, was for this moment to find this need. And I feel like we all have a need that we can take responsibility for, and this was mine.
So this is number one thing that pops into my mind, and this is coming from somebody who, I'm being completely honest, and I'm totally ignorant about, how to fix our homelessness problem in the country and everything.
Yeah.
So my first thought when I think about a charity like this is, when you're choosing these families, how do you know that they're not going to just, all this hard work, you furnish an entire house, and then they end up back on drugs or whatever? Like, are you picking these families specifically?
Yeah.
Are you seeing if they have addiction problems, or what goes into choosing which families you're going to furnish homes for?
Right. That's a really good question. And this brings up even a bigger question of like, some of the models that exist in like LA County with like Housing First and rapid rehousing, it's lacking this transitional component. Transitional housing is so important because people need an opportunity to gather themselves, to heal, to restore, to get off addiction, whatever it might be. For the example of partnering with East County Transitional Living Center, the good thing about them is if they're coming from prison and they still have some things to work out, they go through that process at the transitional center. And then they have their counseling, and they have everything that they need, all the resources, all the supportive resources they need. If they have a drug addiction, they actually send them to a sober facility that they monitor and they work with. And so these people come to the transitional center sober. And it's really important because if you don't have that season of healing, you are going to just repeat. Like, history will repeat itself because you haven't really come to terms with your demons. You haven't come to terms with the struggles. You haven't faced your fears in that sense, and you haven't really healed. And obviously, if you're coming from a domestic violence situation, there's going to be years of healing, but there also needs to be supportive resources, like you're saying, in order for them to do that. We're not a house of caseworkers. We are designers. So we specifically come alongside caseworkers so that all their effort and all their work isn't thrown out after 2 years because the trauma of entering an empty home again is revisiting some of those past demons. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what happens. I think the reason why that statistic is so massive, like 50% of families that transition into empty homes will find themselves back through the system. I think it's because they feel helpless. They feel overwhelmed. As a lot of single moms. And if you're a single mom and you can't nest properly, if you can't give a bed to your child, that's going to affect your psyche. That's going to affect your ability to get up and go to work. That's going to affect everything.
And so you're talking about what Pen and Napkin does. These are transitional homes that you're decorating.
So these are the transitional homes we have done. We have decorated transitional homes in the past, but what we do is it's their permanent residence. It's their permanent housing. So it's usually Section 8 housing or government-assisted living housing, but it's not a transitional center.
Got it.
Does that make sense? But they still have access to their resources if we have chosen a family that is a graduate of a program. And that's where we've done both, where we've helped families that haven't graduated a program and they turned over and they lost all their furniture, and it was devastating to not just them, but to our team, for all the efforts they put through. But it's worse on the kids. It's devastating to give a kid a bed and then everything's gone.
Well, what stuck out to me about Pen and Napkin, and this is why I was like, oh, cute survivors will think this is so cool, because I did, is at first you're like, okay, so what? So you guys are just like gathering furniture and then you just donate furniture to these people. No. These are, like Katie, like real interior designers, skilled interior designers. And you guys are making these homes for these people, like incredible works of art. They're beautiful. And so when I came across your Instagram and stuff, which we'll get into, I was looking at this as like, oh, this girl's got style. I love all this. I was like, oh my gosh, wait. So you're decorating houses that look like this good. I mean, like Pinterest worthy, but these are for people that have gone through, crazy hardships.
Yeah, they're getting the best.
Yes, and now they're getting this. And so that was what was neat to me. It's not that you're just taking furniture and just like, here's like, some lousy bed or whatever. Like, no, this is special. This feels special for them.
It is. And it feels like the standard of excellence I feel like God requires of us to serve. I feel like so often, I think growing up in the church, I can speak to this because I grew up in the church, but I think so often we would see projects being done like community effort projects, and they get the volunteers together to paint a mural, and it's like awful because not one person's an actual artist and it looks terrible. And I'm like, why wouldn't you just hire artists to do this so that it looks really good? You know what I mean? So being a kid and kind of picking up on that, and then later on in life being a designer, I asked myself, like, what could I personally take responsibility for in my community and then bring my best to that? And then giving other designers the opportunity to do the same is the only way I see that pen and acting can grow, is because we want the best to serve the least of these.
Well, you reached out to me to give me some advice on my own interior design fiasco with my apartment. And one thing led to another. Now you are helping me design my place after being a fan of my daily show, Politics, and the spillover for some time.
Yeah.
I thought this would be fun to ask you. So based on what you know about me,
oh God,
from what I post online and share on my shows and everything, just my personality,
or a late night text message exchange.
Yeah, well, before that though,
okay.
Perception? Perception of me was, before actually meeting me and getting to know me. Based on that, what surprised you the most about how I was actually looking to decorate my home?
I definitely thought you were going to be more like airy boho, like light and bright. But then I never forgot that post about that art piece that you love so much. And so
the creepy picture of the girls in the water,
which is
that everyone hated. Like, what is this?
But honestly, it's now, having known you for a little while and gotten to know your style and your taste, it's interesting because it makes sense. It makes sense why you would want to come home to a place that mellows you out.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
That is such a good description, because I do feel like that. I have explained this to guys I'm dating and stuff before, because it's funny because every guy I date, when they get asked by their friends and stuff, like, what is it like dating Alex? Just what they know about me online and my shows and stuff, they always think that I'm always like, on one 100% of the time. Like, I'm super spazzy, like talk like this all the time. Because I do that when I get excited, like on the show and stuff. But no, at home and in my personal life and stuff, I'm very, very chill. I'm almost like a little bit more introverted.
Totally.
Because I'm talking and entertaining and stuff.
So much.
All
that you
day.
shut down when you get home.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so like with boyfriends and stuff, they're like, oh no, she's never like that. She's very, she's very, very relaxed and stuff. And so I loved the idea of having something totally opposite than what you see on the Spillover set or the Politics set. Just like kind of like a dark, creepy, not as creepy as like Kat Von D's mansion in LA. Did you see that she just put that up for sale?
No.
She literally has the swimming pool in the backyard dyed red like blood. I mean, that's like super gothic.
Yeah, no.
That's like too dark for me, but I don't know what is the style we're going for.
Honestly, I think we have come to terms with you are eclectic.
Yes.
So we started off with, I want it to look like Spanish revival. And then you're like, but I like vintage. And then you're like, but I like antiques. And I like dark and moody. And I was like, okay, yeah, let's keep going. And like we went back and forth a lot with different pieces of furniture. And she would be drawn to certain things and not drawn to other things that were surprising. But they would just direct me closer to kind of honing in on her style. And it's a lot of freedom with an eclectic taste, so it's nice. We get to have a lot more fun and play with color and play with texture and play with old and new pieces and blend them together. So
well, one thing I told you, I said none of that. Live, laugh, love, farmhouse, all white. Like, I'm done with it. I'm so over it, because every person has the same thing. And I have my entire life from being a teenager on, I always wanted to look and be completely different than everybody else.
Right.
This is going to sound so cheesy. And I think I've said this like a long time ago in an interview, but I feel like the song that defined my life was Anything But Ordinary by Avril Lavigne. When I heard that for the first time in 4th grade, I thought, oh my gosh, she's right. I want to be anything but ordinary. And my whole, that has defined me, my personality, my career, how I want to decorate. So yes, for the first time, we're getting rid of, all the furniture and stuff I've grown out of. And so speaking of that.
You're donating all of your furniture, like a doll, to Pen and Napkin.
Yes.
And I think it's awesome.
Thank you.
But we did have a bit of a disappointment in that process.
So this is juicy, Katie, and I really want to...
I want to navigate this gently because I want people to understand that this isn't like a fair representation of pen and napkin. I think it's a representation of the divide in our country right now and people's inability to see past others' beliefs and others' political stance for the common good. They're not able to set it aside. So how we operate is we have designers across the nation, like Alex said, that have signed up to say, hey, I want to do a project. So when Alex said, I want to donate all my furniture, I was like, oh, that's awesome. You know, we'll get a storage unit, we'll save it for a family, and I'll find a designer that's in Phoenix that will take on a project for a family. We want to work with Family Promise out here, and I haven't reached out to them yet, but I'm going to. We work with Family Promise in Burbank and the Verdugos, so I know that they're an incredible transitional organization. And anyway, so before I reached out to Family Promise, I reached out to this designer, and she was really excited at the fact that someone was going to be donating all their furniture from their apartment, so that was going to make that easier for her. And she asked where the furniture was coming from, and I said, oh, it's from Alex Clark. And she's like, oh, I don't know who that is. And I was like, she is a conservative personality. Like, you can look her up if you want. And she just had this very negative response. She actually went to the TPUSA website. That was where she went. She didn't go to Politics Instagram or anything like that. She started scrolling, and she started, the more she scrolled, the angrier. You could hear it in her voice. She just got more and more angry. She's like, I can't be associated with this person. I think she used the word ew and yucky.
She said ew and yucky about me?
And I just was like,
tell me this part.
I was like, oh, okay. And I said, okay, so let me get this straight. Like you don't feel comfortable doing the project at all now, or you just don't want to have the furniture, you don't want to use the furniture from her? Because at the end of the day, there's still families in need, right? So are we willing to like put that aside and still do a project with us, or you don't want to do the project at all? And it seemed like she just didn't want to do this project, but I think that was her nice way of saying she's done with pen and napkin. So I think that was like the first taste of what this might actually do, being on this podcast. But I also recognize that it isn't about politics as much as she thinks it's about politics, and maybe we feel like it is. I was really thinking about it, and I was like, at the end of the day, if someone had a need and you were presented with the solution for that need, if you choose not to solve that need, that's a hard issue. That's not anything else.
She's really yucky.
No, honestly, I think she's blinded. I think she's honestly blinded by her political beliefs so much so that she can't even see past that to the need, you know? And I wish, and what's so beautiful about Pen and Napkin is that a lot of our followers are liberal. I love that. A lot of them are conservative. But what Pen and Napkin does is builds this bridge over this huge gap and this divide, because we can agree that this kid needs a bed.
And that's what I don't understand. You're going to say that a homeless person, my furniture as a conservative is not good enough for someone that's homeless, who literally has nothing.
Right.
Nothing. My furniture is not good enough just because that I'm conservative. Like, that person, you know, doesn't care whose butt sat on that couch before and who they voted for.
They don't care, and they would never ask. And I never ask what my clients' beliefs are.
Yeah.
Like, I would never deny my client. I've had clients, literally, Alex, I've had clients tell me, you know what, I'm not going to need that crib because I'm going to have an abortion. Like, and I still did the project, even though my heart broke into 1,000 pieces, knowing that this crib isn't going to get used by this mom anymore. But like, I'm getting emotional because, you know, she couldn't handle another child. And so she was, you know, making that decision, and it was heartbreaking. But we still did the project. We still got beds for the other kids, and we still loved that mom.
Of course,
because that's the right thing to do. And at the end of the day, wherever the furniture comes from, wherever the funding comes from, we're going to take it and use it the way God is going to use it. And I'm just so grateful for the designers that can see past that and see that, you know, we are going to unite in this effort, because they don't even know sometimes that they're working alongside conservative Christians. They're working alongside liberals, and Christians are working alongside each other all the time. During Pen and Napkin projects. And some of them don't even know it. I would say the vast majority of followers on Pen and Napkin don't know I'm conservative. The woman I was talking to on the phone with probably thinks that I agreed with her, because I didn't argue with her. I didn't yell at her. I just said, okay, I understand your position, that you feel like you can't do this project, and we'll find another designer for this project. And I hope that, you know, if you ever change your mind, that you come and you do a project with us. And she was like, yeah, I really want to do a pen and napkin project. But at the end of the day, who's the one that suffers in that moment? The family. Not you, not me, not even her. The only one that suffers is one more family didn't get served. We need as many designers as we can. And we have so much need around us that there's not enough designers. So for one designer to back out because of something like this, it was heartbreaking, but eye-opening.
Now, you've experienced your own discrimination from TV networks for being openly Christian.
Yeah.
Just like Chrissy Hammer was canceled from HGTV. I mean, their show was, like she described earlier, was coming out. That they had started filming. Wow. That was all happening. And then all of a sudden, you know what? You're white and you're conservative. We don't want to work with you anymore. Dang. So could you talk about what your experience has been working with TV networks?
Well, mine was before, like, the pandemic, which seems like a whole another era.
Right.
This was pre-COVID, even though COVID's been around forever, I guess. But yeah, I think it was a hard, it was a hard reality. We got hit with so much interest. We did, I don't know where to begin in this story. But basically, we spoke at a church and we shared like our mission. And then the pastor prayed for us at South Hills in Burbank. And one producer came and approached us and he said, you know what, this would be an incredible reality show. Have you ever thought about doing that? And I was like, honestly, I grew up in television. Like, I really don't want to do a reality show. But as long as we can protect my families that I serve, like my clients, and we can keep the integrity of the show and there can be a faith-based component, and, you know, he assured me, he's like, yeah, absolutely. Let's go for it. And then before I knew it, we were meeting with 7 different production companies.
Wow.
So many people wanted to make Pen and Napkin a show. And I was like, wow, God, you must really want to make this a show if you're having producers follow me and find me from all over in this short period of time. It was bizarre. So I took it with a grain of salt and I was like, okay, Lord, I'm willing to walk this road with you. So we did interviews with so many different production companies. Some really big ones too. And a lot of the producers tried to talk me out of having the faith component in there. And they said, if you keep it in there, you're not going to get a show. I'm just telling you straight up. If you keep it in there, you're not going to get a show. So let's just take it out and then we can talk about it once the show's there, once you've signed your contract, but it can't be in the contract. You're making things harder for us. We can't pitch this show. We can't shop this show. We can't, you know, sell this show if you have that in there. And I stuck to my guns. And we shot a pilot with the first producer who approached us at that church thinking that he could make it happen, but no. And they pitched to everyone. But
they didn't want to have you be openly Christian on the show.
And they said it was probably because of that. It was mostly because, you know, it makes it hard to sell a show.
Unreal. Well, here's the deal. I love what Katie is doing with Pen and Napkin. My birthday is next week. 29. She's 29, 90s baby. So in honor of my birthday, I wanted to humbly ask you guys, and myself included, to become care-servatives for the next week and donate to Pen and Napkin. And what's really cool is that my birthday actually falls in line with a really neat project that Pen and Napkin is doing for human trafficking survivors.
Yeah, so we're working with Cherished LA. They are a nonprofit that helps survivors of human trafficking and sex trafficking get back on their feet. It's run by a wonderful woman named Kate. I hope you get the chance to meet her or talk to her one day. She has an incredible story of being trafficked herself, and she felt like there was this gap in resources for her when she was getting out of the industry and trying to start over. She didn't have a lot of opportunities for jobs. She didn't have a lot of opportunities for real, you know, anything. And so she wants to be that for these survivors. And the Super Bowl every year is one of the largest events that traffickers take advantage of, I guess.
Yeah, they target women there, and they're selling women while the Super Bowl is happening.
Yeah,
there's all these women being sold at the stadiums.
Yeah, it's awful. And there's going to be, you know, actual rescues happening, and they're one of many organizations that have been a part of this, you know, process in helping all these women and children. Unfortunately, there's going to be more children than ever this year. They're anticipating an increase of 300%.
Oh my gosh.
And it's heartbreaking. So I think once the women are rescued and brought to the facility, they're going to be walking into a fully furnished and decorated home. Kate got another house donated to her. So she has 2 safe houses now, and the second one has never been furnished. It was completely empty when she got it. We replaced the carpet in both houses because it was pretty gross. And we've spent a good amount of money on furnishing the one house, and then we still have to furnish the other one. But yeah, we're fundraising for that right now.
Amazing. So any donations made to Pen and Napkin over the course of the next week, that will most of that will be going towards that project for the human trafficking survivors to have fully furnished homes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where should conservatives go to donate to Pen and Napkin?
penandnapkin.org/donate.
Awesome. Katie, thank you so much for coming on the Spillover today. I'm so excited for everything Pen and Napkin is doing, and I also cannot wait to see what you do with my apartment.
Oh my gosh, let's go shopping.
You know what's unifying? The arts, music, art, design, all of it. It brings people from different backgrounds together. A liberal and a conservative can look at the same design and both love it. We can buy the same clothes and dance to the same songs, and for a moment, we forget that we don't agree on everything, and that's a good thing. Chrissy and Katie aren't just concerned with politics. They are concerned about people and their needs and what they can do to solve those needs. I promise you, when the left and right come together to give a kid their dream bedroom, they aren't thinking about politics. They are thinking, wow, I'm so glad that this kid won't be sleeping on the floor tonight. When we can set our differences aside, we will start to see the unification we need to heal America. It starts with everyday people in every field who are willing to work with others without politics in mind, just like Chrissy and Katie. Before you go, don't forget to check out Pen and Napkin to see how they are impacting communities at the local level in such special ways. And then if you're able, I really, really would encourage you to make a donation to help their work. I don't usually ask you guys for much, but this case in particular is so near and dear to my heart, and it would just really make my birthday. And then show the Spillover some love by leaving a 5-star review. Leave a comment describing your interior design style. I'm really curious to know. I love getting to know you guys through those comments and reviews. Share this episode and make sure you're subscribed and in the know. Obviously, be following my daily show at Politics on Instagram too, because Chrissy is going to be redoing our set. I cannot believe it. I'm so excited. As always, new episodes of The Spillover drop every Thursday at 9 p.m. Pacific and midnight Eastern on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Watch this interview by subscribing to Politics on YouTube. I'm Alex Clark, and this is The Spillover. Love you. Mean it. Bye.
Big dog status, I'm a big dog vet. I pull up on the block in a big Corvette. Yeah. Ride around the city with a stick all black. Try with a stroke, but we ain't with all that. Yeah.
How much does the earth cost? I'm gonna buy the entire earth.
Hey everyone, it's Jon Root. Don't go anywhere, because coming up next on TPUSA Live, Alex Clark brings you a brand new episode of Politics, talking about Nicole Kidman's no-no, an SNL sex scandal, a pop quiz, and so much more pop culture without the propaganda. Next on Politics.
I am not ashamed of having hemorrhoids, and I will not let no one shame me for having hemorrhoids. Stay in your lane. You get it or you don't.
Pink cowboy hat lesbian loves forbidden jelly beans. Okay, thank you, that's enough.
Next.
Lauren Lane absolutely destroys the notion that children should wear masks. A Yellowstone star won't be attending the SAG Awards because he's standing up to juice mandates. A new documentary about Olivia Rodrigo is coming out, and the Freak of the Week continues to make enemies. I'm Alex Clark, and this is Politics. Have I told you yet that I am obsessed with Chris and Lauren Lane? I love their relationship. All they do is laugh.
Go, 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 go.
Wait, this is my fate.
Ew, honey.
Babe!
Ew.
Brief brief history lesson. Lauren won Ben Higgins' season of The Bachelor. They got engaged, they broke up, and now she's married to country singer Chris Lane, and they have a baby, Dutton. A few days ago, she slammed mask mandates for kids on her Instagram story, saying, "Young children cannot learn with a mask on, period, point blank. This is cruel. I am thankful we are able to travel for now to see family because Dutton is not to, and in my heart, I know for a fact he would never keep a mask on at the young age of 2. Then she referenced the Super Bowl, saying, "I'm not anti-mask, but if you let 75,000 people gather in a stadium, childcare programs with toddlers can lose the masks. Who is representing the children?" Another star speaking out against mandates, this time about the juice, is Yellowstone star Forey J. Smith.
It's not like a mechanical bull or something that I could try first. Just
mechanical bulls are for drunk chicks at the county fair.
Yellowstone is nominated this year for a SAG Award in the Drama Series Ensemble category. But Forey, who plays Lloyd Pierce on the show, isn't going. Why? He said, "I'm not juiced. I will not get juiced. I haven't been juiced since I was a little kid. I don't juice my dogs. I don't juice my horses. I've never had a flu shot. I never will. I believe they compromise your immunities." Yeehaw! 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 Oh, why does Disney have to be a bunch of communists? But I'm still excited about this new documentary about Olivia Rodrigo coming to Disney+. It's all about the making of her debut album, Sour, and it's called Driving Home to You. The only trailers I could find were like bootleg versions, and it's only a few seconds long, so it'll be fine.
What was going on in the back of my head in a way that was proud and not ashamed. The album is due in 7 days. Oh my God. Coming from this place of hurt and you manage to turn it into something that you're proud of, there's like nothing better than that.
Documentary comes out on Disney Plus in March. I will be watching, most likely though, through someone else's login. Will you?
Got my driver's license last week, something we always talked about.
Betty boy, you know what to do.
I said certified free. Free! 7 days a week.
You've got to be kidding me. The Tinder swindler Simon Leviev has a Hollywood agent, and he's wanting to do either a dating reality show or a podcast about dating do's and don'ts. Dating don't give a guy you just started dating a loan for $25,000. A reality dating show, though? I might watch. Imagine him as the next Bachelor. But a podcast, you're out of your mind. He's a faux for show.
No.
You know how I've been posting all my behind the scenes of redoing my apartment on Instagram? Well, today's newest episode of The Spillover is all about interior design. Not only what's in and what's out, but also being conservative in the design industry. I talked to my interior designer, Katie Bouchard, and founder of the nonprofit Pen and Napkin about my design process and how someone didn't want to take my donated furniture for a homeless family because I'm conservative. Also, I talked to Chrissy Hammer, who had a show with HGTV that was dropped because she's white and a conservative. Listen now on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Just subscribe to The Spillover and leave a 5-star review. Before you go anywhere, please like this episode. Do you watch Yellowstone? I just burped. DM this episode to someone who loves the show and tap the save button. We're back tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. It's pop culture without the propaganda every single day. I'm Alex Clark, and this is Poplitics. Support Poplitics, the first ever conservative pop culture daily show, by subscribing to our channel, turning on notifications, and of course, hitting the thumbs up. Also, our main home is on Instagram. Seriously, just trust me, that's where the real magic happens. Follow us there at Poplitics.